I hate you. bitch. Have a great day. running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello. Ooh, that was good. That was a good start. Hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. It is good to be back live. It's a crazy season, so lots of stuff is going on. But thank you for being here, for tuning in. We have a packed show today, especially because we pre-recorded last week. And then the government shutdown was over by the time I think this aired, I believe. And I wanted the government shutdown to be over, but not under the circumstances that it happened. So, that's just a word to the wise that, if you're manifesting something to the universe, really make sure to be crystal clear. You can't just say, I want the government shutdown to be over so that people, can travel and everyone can have their, food and resources that they need. You have to be like, and then also, hopefully the Democrats don't pussy out and actually keep the momentum that they got from the win in New York, the win in Virginia, and the win in New Jersey. But, the Democrats really can't keep it going well for more than, I don't know, they had a 6-day run there, so that was an all-time best in recent years, I would say. So again, just make sure to be very clear when you say things, because the universe, God, whoever will hear you. We'll hear you, and we'll transcribe exactly as you said it. So there's so much to get to today, so we're going to go right into it. Thank you so much to everyone who came to Slutsgiving on Friday. That was a wild show. That was honestly one of the best GWF shows we've ever done live. Like, it was really incredible. If I do say so myself, I just rate it based on like how much it seems like the audience is enjoying themselves, and then quite frankly how much I'm enjoying myself, because that's a pretty good way to gauge a live show. I guess unless you're drunk or on drugs, but I was neither. I was drinking a Diet Coke. Thank you.
Just a quick question about that. Is that ever going to be released as a podcast episode?
Wow, who's asking you?
Yeah, I still don't know who the special guest was.
Oh, okay. Well, I can talk about it now on air. So this was a big point of the show. So the special guest was supposed to be Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind, but because of the flight delays and everything with the government shutdown and all these flights being canceled, he was unable to make it. So Donald Trump personally ruined, my show. But it ended up being great. We just did a best of. We had Chloe LeBranch, we had Mike Coscarelli, we had Eric Freddy, and those were the characters that were on. And I think because we all know each other so well, that's probably what made the show great. That being said, we did also, during the show, call Stephen Jenkins and leave a singing message as an audience. So that was a fun little together activity. But yeah, no, I don't think we are releasing this one just because there's so many games. And there's also like, we didn't preface it with like, hey, if you come on stage, this is going to be released to everyone. So I think we'll do clips, but I don't think we're releasing this whole one. There needs to be some incentives to come and see us live, right? Yeah. And just like, games and like banter and a lot of that stuff, like, it depends. Sometimes it doesn't translate super well to audio only, but we'll do some clips. All righty then. I'm trying to think what else happened this week. I mean, I don't know. Just like I was hard at work, basically. Enjoying my my beet juice right here. It's my favorite juice. Is that Is that weird that my favorite juice is beet juice? Do you like beet juice, Michael?
I mean, I can't say that. I'll be honest. Michael Ian Black put me off of it. He had like a pretty viral.
He put you off of it?
Yeah.
What the? Okay. What? Please tell me what the hell could be wrong with beet juice now?
He had like a. I used to listen to Comedy Central Radio all the time when I had Sirius XM in my nice car. And he had like a bit where he talked about having to go to the doctor because he was peeing blood, and then remembering that he was drinking beet juice, and that I don't know, the visual of that stuck with me, and I'm just afraid that I too am going to be dumb enough to go see a urologist after I drink one.
Very interesting. Okay, yeah, that's not about. I thought it was going to be some indigenous group of people was being massacred by beet farming or something.
No.
So I was like, you know what? That's fine. I was like, there's plenty of things I eat and drink that change the color. I mean, my vitamins make my pee neon yellow, so I'm good on that. I love beet juice.
What does it do for you?
It just tastes so good. It just invigorates me. I think it's maybe the vampire in me. This is the closest I've ever been to drinking blood because it looks like it. I don't know what it is. I love this juice. I love beets. I only got into beets like in the past 5 years, and I'm obsessed with them. They're super heart healthy. I don't have great heart history in my family too, so I think in my head I'm like, it just really feels internally when you drink beet juice like it's really doing something. Like it's really healing the inside of my body. That's what it feels like. And it tastes, I just like the taste.
I mean, this is would you say 5 years ago you were into like a rewatching The Office phase? And Dwight Schrute spoke to you?
What? I don't get this reference. I haven't watched the whole series, The Office.
Oh, that was like his whole thing was that while he did work in an office, his real hobby was being a beet farmer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
That and Doug Funny are like the two beat pop culture references I can think of.
The Beats, great band. Honestly, I would have seen them live if they were a real band. They had some bops. Okay, we're talking about Doug Funny from the Nickelodeon show Doug. Obviously, if you're too young to know what we're talking about, prime time. Those were some great shows. All right, let's get right into the enemy of the state. This week's enemy of the state is. It's Nicki Minaj this week, guys. Dun, dun, dun. Mike wasn't ready.
Enemy of the state.
All right. So I don't know if you guys have been here. First of all, Nicki Minaj has been taking, steps towards MAGA for a while, and now she's finally full on working with Donald Trump. This is from Rolling Stone. Misconceptions. Faith is under attack. Nicki Minaj spreads misleading information at the United Nations. Nicki's claims of extremism against Nigerian Christians like Trump's aren't backed by any data. And I do want to say this is interesting, but because, before everyone started attacking Nicki and I heard that she was doing this, I did ask my buddy ChatGPT about it, and it did seem like there actually was violence happening against Christians, according to ChatGPT, but now all these major news sources are kind of saying this data is inaccurate. So, again, you can't go off any one source, and that includes artificial intelligence, even though artificial intelligence is taking from a lot of other sources. Even to another thing today, I was talking to another friend of mine about everything that's happening with the pageant lawyer and the James Comey case, which we'll get into later. And my friend was telling me that Erica Kirk, when she was going by her maiden name before she met Charlie, and the Comey pageant lawyer had done a pageant together. And I tried to even confirm that. on ChatGPT because our original source was Just Jared, and we're not sure how trustworthy Just Jared was. And it was saying that they had not both competed in Miss Colorado. And then we dove deeper. My friend found the actual, from the pageant website, the pageant list of Miss Colorado, and they had in fact competed again, together. So all this to say is I do find that the only foolproof or the best foolproof way to fact check. And the only reason I like ChatGPT is because it's fast, right? So it's easy to do in real time when I'm on air. But nothing is foolproof. And I feel like the most foolproof is still finding two major news sources that report it. And you have to even be careful when you're doing that, because sometimes one major news source will pull from another major news source, but it will clarify that in the article. It will say in the article, if Washington Post, say, is reporting something that CNN said, it will say in the article as originally reported by CNN, so you know where it came from. So you want to try to find two places where it's not cross-reporting. That's my, biggest thing. But I just did want to point that out because, again, I think misinformation, when it comes to politics and certainly voting is the biggest fight that we are fighting right now. And we have to find a way, especially with Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah dinners coming up, Ramadan. If you want to be armed with information, if you are someone who wants to, I know some of you are salivating. You go, you say to yourself, I have to go home and talk to my uncle, but you love it. You secretly love getting in a fight with your uncle over the holidays, and I know you do, and it's fine. Just own it. That's not how I approach the holidays, even though I'm extremely passionate about this. I am not passionate about changing the viewpoints of my two family members. I try to just, I don't know. I judge them by the content of their character day to day. And again, I know that voting a certain way, people say, well, there's no way to go back from that. I don't know. They donated to my campaign. That's all I have to say about that. So they're not. How far right can they really be? Because my campaign was going to be pretty far left. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out to you, that while I am not anti-ChatGPT in any way, I do think it's a wonderful resource. We still have to be responsible when using it, and it is certainly not foolproof in any way. So you're going to want to double check that. All right, get back to this article. Faith is under attack. Nicki Minaj spreads misleading information at the United Nations. Nicki's claims of extremism against Nigerian Christians like Trump's aren't backed by any data. This is by Andre Guy. Nicki Minaj spoke at the United Nations headquarters today, calling out what she perceives as extremism against Christians in Nigeria. I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, she said, also asserting in her 4-minute speech that today faith is under attack in way too many places in Nigeria. Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned, families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly simply because of how they pray. Before Minaj's speech, UN Ambassador Mike Waltz echoed the notion of persecution against Christians before thanking Nicki for taking the UN podium to demand action for Christians. Minaj's speech prefaced a panel discussion entitled Combating Religious Violence and the Killings of Christians in Nigeria. Time reporter Erica Cordelesa previously broke news of the speech, revealing that President Donald Trump's advisor, Alex Brusewitz, facilitated Minaj's appearance. The speech comes weeks after she made an X post lauding a Trump Truth Social post that claimed that Christianity was under an existential threat in Nigeria. Elsewhere in November, she shared a pro-MAGA clip posted by the White House's X account, which was soundtracked by her Bees in the Trap hit, as well as a xenophobic, transphobic video highlighting Trump's accomplishments since beginning his second term, which resulted in her losing over 100,000 followers. Trump has asserted that Christians have been persecuted and murdered by radical Islamists and has threatened to invade Nigeria, quote, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. On September 11th, Texas Senator Ted Cruz introduced a bill against persecution of Nigerian Christians. But the nonpartisan, U.S.-based organization Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project and Council on Foreign Relations, that's smooth, have repeatedly stated that the notion of Christians being disproportionately attacked is a dangerous reduction. And I think that's the key sentence here. It's like, it's not that they're not being attacked, but it's not disproportionately. It's a dangerous reduction of the nature of violence in Nigeria that isn't backed by data. Nigerian citizens support their sentiment. In an Al Jazeera op-ed, senior special assistant to the president of Nigeria, Gimba Kakanda, stated every region of Nigeria has both Christians and Muslims living side by side, and conflicts typically unfold along community or regional lines rather than strictly religious ones. Bulama Bukarti, a Nigerian conflict researcher and human rights lawyer, told ABC News that the violence is indiscriminate in a report where an imam stated, the kind of pain we've gone through for the past years, this issue affects both faiths. Nigeria's population of 220 million people is mostly split between Christians and Muslims. Still, Minaj, like Trump and his conservative comrades, is projecting a misconception that Christians in particular are being assailed in Nigeria. This is about standing up in the face of injustice. She said during her speech, it's about what I've always stood for my entire career, and I will continue to stand for that for the rest of my life. I will care if anyone anywhere is being persecuted for their beliefs. And, you know, this is another interesting example of how it's like, okay, well, to say that people are being persecuted for being, Christian is not an untruth, but there's like an ellipses there, and the ellipses fills in the other important part, which is that Muslims are also being persecuted for being Muslim. And I think that's, very similar to, for instance, a lot of things that we talk about with Jews and Muslims, when we talk about anti-Semitism being on the rise. Well, that is true, but ellipses, what's also true, and this is, pretty much neck and neck, is, at the same rate that anti-Semitism has rose, Islamophobia has also risen. So, I think the problem here is that, each side is just going to say what is most helpful to the fight that they are fighting, or the truth that they want to share that will be most helpful to that group. But again, you just got to look. You got to dig a little deeper. You
could stay so surface level with this and debunk this stupid story.
I'm sorry, what?
You ready for this?
Yeah, what?
If the issue that we're actually facing here is that Christians are being persecuted for their faith internationally, and we must intervene because that's happening. Mm-hmm. Let's look at Syria, which is now run by the former Al-Qaeda member who was once on America's #1 most wanted list. Mm-hmm. Christians were living in relative peace in Syria under the Assad regime. The United States backed a coup that let this guy take power. Now he's shaking hands with Trump in the White House while bands of roving Islamic jihadists are killing Christians brutally in the street in Syria. Here's Trump shaking his hand saying we can do business with this guy.
So wait. So what are we debunking here?
I'm saying that the United States does not actually care about the persecution of Christians internationally. They strictly care about making deals for land, for natural resources.
Look, of course.
So it's like this is all garbage pretext to go in and stage a coup and make another country a de facto colony of the United States.
Right, but and the strategy works, and I think like he's leaning on Christianity. Well, I mean, there's been a lot of talk over, the first and secondly, this second Trump administration where I think it's louder, the Christianity is louder, that, people have many times talked about how Trump was not known for being a religious guy, but he's leaned into it because, Christians are a group that mobilize really well. And it's something that people feel so passionately about that he's been able to leverage it to get things done that he wants to get done. And that's the group that's going to go along with him. Very similar to how, none of these people on the right have particularly cared about Jews anymore. But, post October 7th, they, understand that a lot of Jews feel scared or angry, at the Palestinian people, even though, because of the initial attack, even though it's now turned into a genocide, and he and the right have leveraged that to get many Jews over to voting Republican, which is just not a traditionally Jewish thing. I mean, if conservative Jews maybe, but Jews are pretty known for being a liberal group of people. That's part of the thing, part of the sell. So that's been very interesting, to watch. Disheartening, but interesting.
Also, can we discuss the whole story is farcical, right? You have Nicki Minaj, who's only aligning with Trump because she wants pardons for family members who, have done wrong. And Trump has
I forgot about any of that. Where is that? Is that
it's her husband has a sex crimes thing, and
right,
her brother
right.
has some thing on his record.
Right.
So it's the same reason Snoop Dogg played at that stupid crypto conference and everybody hated on him. And he's like, I'm good because I'm doing right for my people. So nothing you say can make me feel bad.
Well, I mean, this is, this is an interesting life lesson right here because, and my number one incentive for living a good life, is yes, you want to. This is not good for me because I personally just like to feel good about myself when I go to sleep at night. But here, a good incentive, if that's not enough of an incentive to you, is that you should live a good life so that no one has dirt on you and you don't have to be beholden to anyone. If just feeling good about yourself when you go to bed at night isn't enough, and I know that's that's not enough for many people, and that's totally fine. I think an incentive should be that once people have dirt on you, or once people have control over you, or once you've done something bad and you need to get out of a pickle, you're going to end up being beholden to people, and a little bit of bad is going to turn into a lot of bad. So but if you don't do that, that's why it's so interesting to watch a politician like Zoran Mamdani, who they really don't have anything on him, but now every single step is him walking over the coals because any wrong, we're all watching, and any wrong move, it's that goes on your record forever. It's weird and scary, but I guess it shouldn't be scary if you just do everything right. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, again, these aren't her crimes. You know what I mean? It's you can't.
They're not her crimes, but she could also have just left her husband when that came out.
Okay. I mean, the heart wants what it wants. You love the man. You love the man. I don't know what to tell you. But
are you
your
joking?
brother, what are you going to do?
If it came out that my husband had committed sex crimes, I would leave him. That's not really a hard decision to make.
For you, for other people, it's I can't judge another person's choices. It's not she didn't do the wrong thing. It feels like she's just trying to clean up other people's messes.
She kind of did the wrong thing now.
Fair.
I mean, that's a little hard, because it's also it's not we have to do a performative, thing, I'm going to do this because I performatively need to do the right thing. I truly don't know how I could let the dick of someone who committed sex crimes enter me. Quite frankly, I know that was graphic for everyone. Not wrong show for this, but I truly feel that way. What were the sex crimes again? I remember talking about this, but unfortunately, I read about so many sex crimes that they all kind of blur together. Do we know what he did?
I'm looking it up now. I too have looked. All right, so Nicki Minaj's husband, Kenneth Perry, has a criminal record that includes a 95 conviction of attempted first-degree R-word, for which he served a 4-year prison sentence. His lifetime sex offender registry is also a result of the conviction. He faced recent legal
I'm
trouble.
actually surprised that he even got convicted of attempted rape. So many. Oh, sorry, R word. Are we getting knocked on? I didn't know if that was like a YouTube thing. I just usually say it.
I don't know either, but with YouTube,
because also when you say R word, I think of another R word, not that R word.
First degree attempted that. What did he try to hit somebody with a brick?
I don't. Yeah, I'm very surprised that he got convicted of that because, again, like so many sex criminals just walking around the earth free without having to pay any sort of penance at all. All right. Well, that's interesting. Also, a reminder, we haven't said this number in a while, but if we are live, so if you want to call in the show, Mike, can you give the number? Or I think our Google number might have expired. We got a couple emails saying, like, do something about this or call.
Yeah, and I did something, so we're good.
Oh, you did? Nice. Thank you.
The live call-in number is 201-308-3510. We tell people to please only call in to discuss topics covered on the show and to be prepared to answer call screening text from me.
Yeah. And like, keep it something that we're talking about in the moment, not just something like you hope that we talk about. And like, not just like you want to chat about your opinion, like you have information to add to the conversation, I would say is the best thing, or or you're in that area of the country or of the world and something that isn't really being reported. We have a big show today, a long show, but just wanted to point out that we got an email from Wacko Megan. And this is happening in many places over the country, but she wanted to point out that specifically ICE is out of control right now in Charlotte, North Carolina. Right now they're doing, Operation Charlotte's Web, which is, the author of Charlotte's Web did not like that. She said, please don't use that. But it's getting really bad. I think there's places where 15% of the school children, if not more, I think that's the number that's in the email, have stayed home from school because parents are so scared of something happening to their children and getting ripped out of the classrooms. So just if you live in Charlotte, if you know someone in Charlotte, especially someone who you think would be in danger. And, in this climate, it means literally someone who actually is an undocumented immigrant or, appears like they could be an undocumented immigrant, because that's what we're working with under this administration. Just make sure that you're reaching out, you're being supportive of your neighbors. You make sure that, if you have a neighbor who is an immigrant, honestly, undocumented or not, that you make sure that they know that they can come to you, that they know their rights. If you give them information, English, Spanish, whatever it is, I think that's a great way to be helpful. Again, as a reminder, liberals, we tend not to be super neighborly. So I think we that's something that liberals can work on. We can work on being more neighborly. And Republicans can work on not reading misinformation. So we both have things to work on. All right. Thanks so much to everyone who is on Patreon. It's patreon.com/withoutacountry. If you guys want to subscribe, all the money goes back into the show. And I have some cool things that I really want to do in 2026. Politically, not running for office. I also, it's not like I could earn money here anyway that would go towards running for office. But some ideas I have to really bring all the things that I learned running for mayor, use them in different ways that, that are more fun and that don't completely turn off the creative side of my brain as running for mayor did. And it's weird because now, I had all this policy, I had all this stuff in my head that I learned, I studied, I had it all, on my fingertips, and I worked so hard to get it there. But that, it did something where it, knocked all the creativity out of my brain. And now I've finally gotten, my creativity back, but, I can't pull out of the policy. And, it wasn't like I just, downloaded it, like I truly did understand what was going on in all the policies, but it was annoying because I just had every single policy point and so much municipal policy like at my fingertips, and I wish I could access that and also my creativity at the same time. But I got to be honest, I only have so much room in my brain. It all can't stay there. I don't know. I don't know how to. If anyone knows how to increase the amount of information your brain can retain long term, email me, because that would be incredible. But right now we're just starting with beet juice. And of course, all hail to our dictator, Christopher Fungi. Thank you so much for being a wonderful dictator. We appreciate you. Shout out to my capitalist pigs. And shout out to my cuties. And let's welcome our newest cutie to the Wacko Patreon. And that is Joe. Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for being here. Again, if you want to sign up, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. Also, I put in my Instagram stories. I think I'm going to be able to get some merch out, in time for holiday ordering, because we haven't done that in a long time. It's something I wanted to do. And a guy that I've worked out with for merch kind of just hit me up. And I said, you know what? You have influenced me. And it's a small business, and they did great drop shipping for another shirt that I did. So I wanted to possibly work on that. Mike, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm a merch guy, but
I didn't know that.
All good.
Literally had no idea that anything was happening with merch.
Yeah, all right.
You gotta promote yourself. Now we know.
Yeah, we'll talk. I just real quick on that last story, the Charlotte's Web thing.
Yeah.
If they're going to start giving these operations like fun names like that, they're never going to beat the Stormtrooper allegations. Like Charlotte's Web does seem very akin to Crystal Knock. You know what I mean? Like a catchy way of talking about these horrific things you're doing to other human beings.
Right. Yeah.
Just don't care for it.
I don't care for the name, and I don't care for what the name is, describing. It's not, I don't care for either. It's not a good situation. All right, let's get into our main story, which is obviously the Epstein files. They are edging us with the Epstein files, as the title of today's show suggests. We're making movement. A lot of jokes online that when they finally are released, that everything that juicy is going to be redacted. There's going to be some kind of, at this point, it's like, I can't even believe that we have hope as a country anymore for things to come out smoothly or cleanly or transparently. But, people still have hope. And I hope, mostly for the survivors who have been through so much, that we can finally see some form of justice when it comes to that. But from CNN, they're doing live updates right now. It says Trump administration latest, Congress sends Epstein bill to president for signature, right? And, okay, so it says what we're covering, awaiting Trump's signature, Congress has sent the bill compelling the Department of Justice to release all of its case files tied to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to President Donald Trump's desk. The timing of the bill signing remains unclear. So basically, Congress, they're good. They did their vote. They said, we want to release these. Now it has to get signed off by Donald Trump. And didn't he say, like, I think he said, like, I'm going to do it. But, he was also questioned, not too long ago. And then he freaked out and said that he was going to take ABC News's news license away from them, which we'll get into in just a second, since this is the main story. The next steps at the Department of Justice, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Department of Justice will continue to follow the law. Amid questions over the timing and scope of the document's release, senators from both parties said that the Department of Justice must comply with the law and release the files within 30 days. So, they're saying Epstein files by Christmas, babies. Trump at U.S.-Saudi summit, a day after meeting with Saudi Arabia's crown prince. Trump spoke at a Saudi-U.S. investment summit where he said visas for skilled foreign workers are necessary, bucking criticism from his MAGA base. Trump's approval rating hits at a second term low. also. That's mostly, I think, due to the economy, but I'm sure the Epstein files are not helping much. Going into this eruption that Donald Trump had, this is from Fox News. Trump erupts on ABC reporter over Epstein questions, suggests yanking network license. An Oval Office exchange with Saudi Crown Prince watching. Trump calls Epstein a pervert he threw out of his club. President Donald Trump erupted on an ABC reporter after she pressed him on issues involving Saudi Arabia and Jeffrey Epstein, as Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman looked on in the Oval Office on Tuesday. Trump accused ABC's Mary Bruce of peddling fake news and even suggested the Federal Communications Commission should revoke the network's broadcast license. It's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions, Trump said at the White House after Bruce asked why Trump didn't just order the release of the Epstein files himself. Earlier, Bruce had asked about the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. Again, this is another big thing that happened this week, for which U.S. intelligence says the Saudi leader bears responsibility. When Trump learned Bruce was with ABC, he said, quote, fake news. Okie dokie. Let's see. You start off with a man who is highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question, Trump said. In Trump's response, he touched on the latest release of documents pertaining to Epstein. Trump insisted to Bruce that he, quote, had nothing to do with the convicted sex offender. I mean, which is crazy because there are, I'm not someone who subscribes to you. If there one photo exists of you next to a bad person, that means that you are also a bad person or even knew the depth of what that person was doing. Like, no chance. Again, I was literally cast in a play that was starring the Chelsea or directed by the Chelsea rapist. I had no idea that he was a bad guy, So like things happen. I did not ultimately do the play, but then I did see him on the news and I said, oh, I know that guy. I thought he was just a director of a play. I had no idea. So like just because you have been in a room or even worked with someone who is a very bad person does not necessarily mean you know that they are a bad person, okay? But Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein have appeared in pictures, and Maxwell have appeared in pictures with each other time and time and time and time and time and time and time again since like the late 90s, right? So that's different. If you are continuously with a person or people and not just in like publicity style shots where it's like, oh, okay, you were at some kind of meeting together and you need to get like a publicity press shot together. That happens a lot. Sometimes in those things, you guys don't even exchange words. You literally just stand next to each other, take a picture, and then move on your merry way, right? But these are pictures where, they're candid, they're walking, they're chatting, they're at dinner, those, and again, time and time and time again over a very long period of time. So for him to say that he has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein is really, really wild. But again, par for the course when it comes to Donald Trump. But Trump insisted to Bruce that he had nothing to do with the convicted sex offender whom he called a sick pervert he kicked out of his club many years ago. Trump then invoked the names of several Democrats and public figures he claimed were close to Epstein, redirect, saying they were with him every single night, every single weekend. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files, Trump said, naming people like former President Bill Clinton and Lawrence Summers. Clinton has denied any knowledge of Epstein's wrongdoing. And the thing is, like, even if these heavy hitters weren't directly involved, I'm sorry, if Jeffrey Epstein knew all these people, was rubbing shoulders with all these people, there is no way that President Bill Clinton, as a two-term president, with the amount of power that he holds in this country, that he didn't at least know what was going on. He had to have known the amount of the amount of intelligence that you have access to as the president of the United States is number one of the most appealing parts of it. You know, I would love to open all those alien files. You know, I would be opening so many files. Day one, leave me alone because I'm opening files. That's the first thing I'm doing when I get in there. So like, you know, and I know he can't just like walk around saying this, obviously, but like, I am sorry. Even if you weren't directly involved, you know what's going on. While Summers announced this week that he was stepping back from public life after released emails showed extensive exchanges between him and Epstein. Trump also suggested Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr should consider removing ABC's broadcast license. I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong, and we have a great commissioner, a chairman, who should look at that, Trump said, accusing the outlet of bias against him. You're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network, Trump said, which is hilarious because it's like out of all the news stations to go after, like ABC is not radical left. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible. You ought to go back and learn how to be a reporter. No more questions from you. Bruce is the network's chief White House correspondent, and she received some support online after the exchange. CNN commentator David Axelrod accused Trump of throwing a hissy fit at her question. Again, something that he's been known to do. Shortly after the two leaders began taking questions, Bruce directed hers at Trump. Her questions focused on the Trump family's business dealings in Saudi Arabia, which the president denies any involvement in. She also asked the Saudi crown prince about the 2018 killing of Khashoggi, for which he has faced accusations of having ordered. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more later. But, you know, that's just what's going on with the Epstein files. And I feel like we've been talking about it so long. And, you know, I just don't want everyone to get all excited like we're going to really get a lot of dirt and then us not getting, you know, a lot of dirt. That would be a sad day. But, you know, we see. And I know a lot of people are really chomping at the bit, hoping that these Epstein files are released. Again, you know, they're guaranteed apparently by Christmas, but, you know, will they even be released by Thanksgiving? I don't know. Let's see. Let us see. What do you think? Like, what do you think that we are actually going to see when these files are released? Or do you think there will be something else that happens that stops them once again from being released? Like, what's going on? What's going on for you?
Okay. Well, I mean, if these files do get released, right, and we find out that all of these people are in a satanic pedophile cult.
Oh, Satan's involved now?
I mean, I'm throwing out there like what people are associating the Epstein thing with. It's like, then these people are so powerful and so willing to go to any lengths to secure their own power and survival that nothing's going to happen to them. They're untouchable. So, right. I mean, I don't know. The fact that it was 427-1 to release it tells me that they've already neutralized it enough that everyone's okay with this dirty laundry being aired. You know?
That they've neutralized the actual documents enough?
Yeah, that like whatever does come out of this, right, everyone's going to be fine.
It's not going to be super juicy. It's just going to be like intel on dead people or something.
Like, I mean, Massey showed one of the pages from the Epstein file, and it's like 4 words aren't on the page aren't redacted.
Right,
so what are we doing here, you know?
Yeah, I know. And like, why do they, I mein... If especially like if you can vote to release them, but then you can also redact most of it. Exactly, it's like kind of what's the point? And I just did a Google search right now. You know, kind of what could stop the Epstein files from being released. And you know, there's already a bunch of stories about this. CNN says, you know, will the Trump administration play games with releasing the Epstein files? Like, is that a rhetorical question? Of course they fucking will. Are you out of your mind? Like, yeah, of course they'll do it. And then you know, 2 hours ago, from ABC News, there's an article that says Epstein files bill includes exceptions that could affect what gets released and when. So again, when I say they're edging us, like we keep getting hopeful, we keep, you know, fighting this fight again. You know, if it's taken this long And if, people are dead because of this, like, do we really think that we're going to see anything that is truly meaningful to us as a country, that is truly healing to survivors, that truly brings justice to people who have done wrong, or demands justice, I don't, at this point, it's just kind of like, fool me once, blame on you, fool me twice, blame on me, fool me 50,000 times, this country's corrupt. All right, let's move on to Could Be Worse, cleanse the palate a little bit from our country. And let's talk about Bangladesh for a second. So this was something that just kind of quickly buzzed by me online. But it's interesting. What was most interesting for me was to see American people commenting on Instagram on the break of this story that I then went and found a reputable article from npr.org about it. But this headline reads, Bangladesh's ousted prime minister sentenced to death for role in protest crackdown. And this is by Shameen Chowdhury. And I got to be honest, the resounding response in the comments from American constituents was that we should have this kind of protocol in America. And I don't honestly think that they were joking. Because again, and this was like a left-leaning source, but again, I really do feel that the especially the alt-left has become like super violent. And a little soulless in the past couple of years. And I don't like it. So it's like if we're running on the ballot line of goodness and justice, we really need to remember that and hold that in our hearts. And as, I guess, enticing as it could be to rid the world of quote unquote bad people. And again, that's people that we as humans here on earth have deemed that are bad. And I know there are some things that, like, yes, we don't need to have a conversation whether you're bad or not if you've done certain things. I get it. But I think it's a very dangerous road to head towards down when we're talking about actually executing people for not leading in a virtuous way, or a way that we deem virtuous, I guess is a better way to say that. It makes me very nervous because I know these are just Instagram comments, but like this energy has been palpable for a while on the left, and we saw it definitely come to the surface after the Charlie Kirk assassination, and you just feel it. You just feel it. And so again, it's like, if we're gonna say that we're good and we're, and we're the good ones and we're on the right side of history and love is love and love always wins and all this shit that we've been saying for years. I mean, I haven't said that because it's corny as hell, but the sentiment, I agree with mostly. Like, please hold that in our hearts. And even though it's sometimes harder to do things the legal way, and I guess it just would be easier to execute people, less time, less work, less paperwork. This is a road that makes me nervous. So a court in Bangladesh sentenced ousted Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death for crimes against humanity on Monday for her role in a crackdown on last year's student-led uprising, which the United Nations says left up to 1,400 people dead. And I only say this because I'm against putting people to death. Period. Hard stop for anything. I've made that very clear. But it is interesting because most people who are in a high enough spot politically, like, every American president for sure, yes, you are going to make decisions that will kill people. And what do we do about that? How do you pay for those crimes? How do you decide which deaths are okay, which deaths aren't okay? You know, I was actually talking about Osama bin Laden, and I have to watch this. Someone recommended the Osama bin Laden documentary to me that I guess is on Netflix. I have to double check, but someone said it's like a must watch. Catching bin Laden on Netflix. I haven't watched that yet. You know, and apparently, and obviously this wasn't widely publicized, but, you know, the Obama administration had been tracking Osama bin Laden for a long time, looking to see where he is, you know, and when they finally killed him, there was family and stuff with him, including children. So it's like, yes, did Barack Obama make the decision to kill children? Yeah. But because they were children who were hanging out with Osama bin Laden, like, he's not guilty. You know what I'm saying here? So again, it just gets into very murky territory, because when I heard that, I go, man, like, that's brutal. It's brutal to have to make a decision like that. I do have empathy. It's like, you need to kill Osama bin Laden, but it's brutal to have to make a decision like that. Where is one life such a threat to many other children in our country that we have to sacrifice these children? How unfair that these children, you know, came into the world and just knew a guy who wanted to do something that, you know, another large country didn't agree with. There's a lot of complexity here. So that's all I'm asking to think about. And I, you know, bring that energy to the comments section, please. The country's international...
Or you could just hang out on my team, which is every U.S. president has been a war criminal.
I mean, I would say like that pretty much if you're leading a country that's a major player, you're most likely a war criminal. I don't see how you can't be. I mean, what do we do? So are you saying then if you become president, you have to agree to definitely being executed like after your terms are done?
I don't know what Trump did during his first president. I mean, I guess the only thing you could make the argument would be killing the Iranian top general, but he was in Iraqi space. Like, it wasn't like he bombed a country. It was like, this dude is a known enemy of America, and he's like in disputed territory. He's a fair combatant. So like, I don't.
Well, that wasn't my question about if one president could be set free, which would it be? And your answer is Trump. My question was that, what do you do? So, but like, so
no,
you're saying that your point is that it is possible
yes.
to not commit war crimes. You just commit crimes against your own people.
Or, I mean, look, I mean, at this point, given what he's done so far in his second term, he's now on the war criminal list. So, like, there's no more immunity for him. But I mean, something like, you know, Obama drone bombing weddings to get to one guy who might have been there, and like 250 people at a wedding had to die.
I know, these are the points I'm making. I think it's a very interesting conversation to be had. And
I think it's simply, if you ever get out of power, you are now a war criminal. So
the game is you have to retain power so that you don't have to pay for the crimes that you committed in this realm, at least.
Yeah, they
gotta wait to meet your maker.
They call it the Netanyahu defense.
Who's they?
Everyone who's watching Netanyahu continue a war so he doesn't have to face a war crimes trial.
Oh, no, I know. I didn't know that was like a phrase that we were all using.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, I've never heard that. The country's International Crimes Tribunal, a domestic war crimes court in the capital, Dhaka, also sentenced Hasina's home minister, Azza Duzzaman Khan, to death. A 3-member tribunal announced the ruling in a session that was broadcast live and lasted several hours. Hasina and Khan fled to India in August last year and were sentenced in absentia. A third suspect, a former police chief, was sentenced to 5 years in prison after becoming a state witness against Hasina and pleading guilty to crimes against humanity. The ICT was set up in 2009 to investigate and prosecute those accused of war crimes during Bangladesh's 1971 War of Independence from Pakistan. At the time of its creation, it was accused by Human Rights Watch and other groups of not meeting international standards. On Monday, HRW's South Asia Deputy Director Meenakshi Ganguly posted on social media, Bangladesh should ensure a credible justice system, abolish capital punishment. Chief Prosecutor Mohammed Tajul Islam insists that Hasina, who was found guilty, among other charges, of ordering the use of lethal force by her security services, received a fair trial. Our tribunal was developed in line with the Nuremberg trials. It has met all international standards. No one can point to anywhere where those standards have not been met, he told NPR. Their defense lawyer was given enough time to come up with the response. He could not take the instruction from the accused as they are fugitives. If they had been present, they could have given their testimonies and provided further witnesses, and they would have been given further time as per the law. Hasina, 78, denounced the verdict as biased and politically motivated. She released a statement through a public relations firm saying, the verdicts announced against me have been made by a rigged tribunal established and presided over by an unelected government with no democratic mandate. I wholly deny the accusations that have been made against me in the ICT. I mourn all of the deaths that occurred in July and August of last year on both sides of the political divide, but neither I nor other political leaders ordered the killing of protesters. I was given no fair chance to defend myself in court, nor even to have lawyers of my own choice represent me in absentia. How do you say that? I mean, I know what it means.
In absentia.
In absentia. Okay, so I said it right the first time. In her absence, obviously. Pent-up grievance about corruption. Was that just another thing where you just guessed how to say it and I'm going to be saying it?
No, I'll bring it up.
It's good to add to the thing. I'm like, in saying it, like saying absentia instead of in your absence is like much more fun.
In absentia.
Nice. I was like, I think it's absentia, right? And then I just said it in a weird way. Pent-up grievance, absentia, this week's word of the week. Pent-up grievance about corruption in the government prompted the protesters, many of them young people, to revolt. The uprising started in July 2024 with demands to abolish government job allocations. It later morphed into a wider anti-government movement and ended with Hasina resigning her post after 15 years in power and fleeing in a helicopter. Yo, it's wild. Monday's verdict comes at the country as the country continues to grapple with instability and violence, with tensions mounting in the days ahead of the ruling. The interim government, led by Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus, stepped up security with paramilitary border guards and police deployed in Dhaka and many other parts of the country, and soldiers surrounding the tribunal premises. Experts believe the verdict will likely reignite the cycle of violence that has come to characterize Bangladeshi politics. Naomi Hossain, a development studies professor at the University of London School. And this is like when we talk about like why political violence is so dangerous, right? Political violence, again, as we see in this article, is a characteristic of a corrupt government. And again, I am not saying that our government is not corrupt, but this is like corrupt on a different level. We're just like, yeah, and we're on our way there, certainly, with, Trump, like basically anyone who he doesn't like, anyone who's his enemy is going to have to face legal repercussions. Well, the next step after that is you're going to face violent repercussions, which, again, Charlie Kirk, what's going on there? Again, although I think Charlie Kirk was just, if Trump was in on it, in his relationships with Erica Kirk, weird. That, he was just kind of using Charlie Kirk as like a sacrifice or a pawn, not like he was the enemy. I'm maybe. But, the next step after legal retribution is certainly, violent retribution, bringing back executions, bringing back government-mandated executions for political heads. Like, it is, again, just a slippery slope. Naomi Hossain, a development studies professor at the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies, told NPR, after the uprising, we might have had a process of justice and peace and reconciliation, but we didn't have that. We've had the same as before. We call it accountability, but it's more like political revenge. She added, what really matters is many people think that this is a kind of justice and that no other kind of justice was going to be achieved. Yunus has banned the activities of Hasina's Awami League Party ahead of elections set for February. In a statement following the verdict, Bangladesh's Ministry of Home Affairs urged India to extradite both Hasina and Khan soon. India's foreign ministry in a statement acknowledged the tribunal's verdict but fell short of stating whether it would hand them over to Dhaka. Hasina cannot appeal the verdict unless she returns to Bangladesh, a move that could further ignite the country's political turmoil. And also, like, again, this is so corrupt. You go back to Bangladesh, via your own free will. And, who's to say you're not just getting assassinated on the spot? I don't know what the fuck is going on, but hey, could be worse. And then this other could be worse is just like, so I saw something about this pop up online, on an Instagram account, and it was about sniper tourism, which is this concept that rich people paid to gun down people in the street in times of war. And I go, and that's what it's saying when I quickly scrolled by it. And in my head, I'm going, surely this can't be true, or surely I would have heard about this before. And so I just looked into a little bit more, and it seems like it is true. So
Hail Satan!
Just like any horrific thing that you can create in your mind that humans might have done, they have done. And I just, again, so this is like a piece of history, again, something that I was stunned that I didn't know about. Sometimes I read information and I go, it's really wild that I got through 40 years and no one ever mentioned this to me, because this seems like a real stain on human history. But there are so many. But then I think there are so many stains on human history. How can one even keep up? So this is from the BBC. From this week, Italy investigates claims of tourists paying to shoot civilians in Bosnia in 1990s. Truly, like a safari, but you have guns and you can hunt. Like it's like trophy hunting, but with humans. I mean, have you heard of this, Mike? This seems like something that you would know about.
No, this sounds like something out of an Arthur Conan Doyle novel.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of shit that keeps me up at night. It goes, how are any of us functioning when behavior like this is in our DNA? I don't know. All right, this is by Sarah Rainsford and Guy Delany. The public prosecutor's office in Milan has opened an investigation into claims that Italian citizens traveled to Bosnia-Herzegovina on sniper safaris during the war in the early 1990s. Italians and others are alleged to have paid large sums to shoot at civilians in the besieged city of Sarajevo. The Milan complaint was filed by journalist and novelist Ezio Gavazzini, who describes a manhunt by very wealthy people with a passion for weapons who paid to be able to kill defenseless civilians from Serb positions in the hills around Sarajevo. Different rates were charged to kill men, women, or children, according to some reports. I'll just give you a moment to digest that. More than 11,000 people died during the brutal 4-year siege of Sarajevo. Yugoslavia was torn apart by war, and the city was surrounded by Serb forces and subjected to constant shelling and sniper fire. Similar allegations about human hunters from abroad have been made several times over the years, but the evidence gathered by Gavazzini, which includes the testimony of a Bosnian military intelligence officer, is now being examined by Italian counterterrorism prosecutor Alessandro Gabbis. The charge is murder. The Bosnian officer apparently revealed that his Bosnian colleagues found out about the so-called safaris in late 1993 and then passed on the information to Italy's SISMI military intelligence in early 1994. The response from SISMI came a couple of months later, he said. They found out that safari tourists would fly from the northern Italian border city of Trieste and then travel to the hills above Sarajevo. So can you imagine not only doing this, but like you pack your bags, you call a sitter, and you get on an airplane to go and murder children for sport. I just don't really know. I mean, again, just file this under I hate rich people. Like this feels old money also. I do want to say. I specifically hate old money. We've put a stop to it, and there won't be any more safaris, the officer was told, according to ANSA news agency. Within 2 to 3 months, the trips had stopped. Ezio Gavazzini, who usually writes about terrorism and the mafia, first read about the sniper tours to Sarajevo 3 decades ago when Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera reported the story, but without firm evidence. And, you know, probably everyone was like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that definitely didn't happen. He returned to the topic after seeing Sarajevo Safari, a documentary film from 2022 by Slovenian director Miran Zupanic, which alleges that those involved in the killings came from several countries, including the U.S. and Russia, as well as Italy. Gavazzini began to dig further and in February handed prosecutors his findings, said to amount to a 17-page file, including a report by former Sarajevo mayor Benjamina Karic. An investigation in Bosnia itself appears to have stalled. Speaking to Italy's La Repubblica newspaper, Gavazzini alleges that many took part in the practice, at least 100 in all, with Italians paying a lot of money to do so, up to 100,000 euros in today's terms. In 1992, late Russian nationalist writer and politician Edward Limonov was filmed firing multiple rounds into Sarajevo from a heavy machine gun. He was being given a tour of hillside positions by Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic, who was later convicted of genocide by an international tribunal in The Hague. It's like Tribunal Day here. Limonov didn't pay for his war terrorism, though. He was there as an admirer of Karadzic, telling him, "We Russians should take example from you." So, like, you know how, like, a lot of times it's interesting for us to, like, study the childhoods of serial killers and, you know, figure out, you know, was it nature or was it nurture? I would like to do the same thing for people like this, you know, just people. How do you get, you know, for really corrupt high level politicians, politician adjacent people, that kind of thing? Because how do you get there? What happens? Italian prosecutors and police are said to have identified a list of witnesses as they try to establish who might have been involved. However, members of the British forces who served in Sarajevo in the 1990s have told the BBC that they never heard of any so-called sniper tourism during the Bosnian conflict. They indicated that any attempts to bring in people from third countries who had paid to shoot at civilians in Sarajevo would have been logistically difficult to accomplish due to the proliferation of checkpoints. British forces served both inside Sarajevo and in the areas surrounding the city where Serb forces were stationed, and they saw nothing at the time to suggest that sniper tourism was taking place. One soldier described the allegations that foreigners had paid to shoot at civilians as an urban myth. So again, ellipses to be continued. You know, is a documentary filmmaker making a 2022 documentary about an urban myth? I don't know. I gotta watch it, but real food for thought. That was the story that chilled me to the bone this week. All right, we need a palate cleanser. You know, this is not good news, but it's much lighter. Let's go over to Girl Dad Corner, which I do feel like needs a drop with Mike Harrington, everybody. And just drop whatever article you're using in there because I know you said you were going to find a good source.
I found one. It's from the New York Times, but I'm concerned. This seems like something we may have read before on this show. Tell me if this rings any bells. Youth sports are a $40 billion business. Private equity is set to cash in.
Well, I'm sorry. What was it?
That was a New York Times article.
Uh-huh.
I'm just wondering if that's ringing any bells for you.
As far as like we read it before, or
yeah, I'm just concerned that we may have. But
where was it from?
From the New York Times.
No. When?
This is from June of this year.
I don't remember this concept in general.
Okay, so
that does seem like something that you would be up in arms about, though.
I mean, certainly the moment I saw the thing today on Instagram that made me send it to you, I was like, yeah, no, this definitely does hit me in the same. Like this is definitely something that I would get up in arms about.
Right.
You know, like
right.
This is a hill I'm willing to die on.
Right.
So this article is just about how private equity firms are investing and buying up, a number of these smaller youth sports leagues. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that they're finding to monetize this purchase, right? Let's say they buy, Larchmont Little League baseball rights.
Right.
For $10 million. Obviously, as it currently stands, that's not a $10 million organization. They're going to need to find ways to start exploiting the customer base to make that back and make this a profitable, purchase. So what they're doing now is parents are being prevented from recording their own kids, from recording their own kids' matches. And instead being told by these private equity firms that now own these leagues, you have to go through our streaming pay-per-view service if you want to watch your kids' games. And that streaming pay-per-view service can range anywhere from $25 to $40. I think Bill Simmons was recently talking about paying up to $50 a month to be in California and watch his daughter play soccer in Boston.
Okay. I mean, and yeah, there's so I see other... this has been happening apparently. You can go even back to 2022. And there was something that said from Forbes about Amazon buying up teen basketball league Overtime Elite. So again, these are leagues I think that are for children who aren't just doing it recreationally, are actually showing some promise, Little League. Although Little League International, I mean, people who just want to play Little League, that doesn't mean that you're making it to the Little League World Series. So I guess it could be a lot of other people, but Amazon does it. Baller TV does it, Baller TV is specifically a youth sports streaming company. And then private equity firms, companies like Apollo Global Management and your favorite Blackstone are making significant investments in the broader youth sports industry. I mean, basically, this is America. If they see a way to make more money, they figure they make more money.
Yeah, I don't see why we are letting private equity into so many facets of American life when we know that private equity's main goal is to suck every last drop of profit out of anything and take it back into, ostensibly the shareholders, but really the board's hands.
Right. Then I think that what you have to do is unless you have a child who you really feel has some type of special athletic promise, shows some kind of special athletic promise, and you need them to be in one of these leagues where they're going to be able to be plucked, to one day hopefully go pro. Then if you just have a kid who's doing it for recreational purposes or socialization purposes or, or whatever it is, then the parents in that town need to get together and make their own, recreational league and, stop supporting financially and with your children groups like this, because this is preposterous.
But I mean, the average working family is already so broken by the capitalist system, needing to work 2 jobs just to be able to afford to live in that town, that who the hell has the time to now organize a baseball league?
There's someone in the town who has it, like usually, like whoever, the dad who has time to coach, or the mom who has time to coach, or whatever. Like, again, yeah, it's not good, but the problem is, is that to make things different, we unfortunately do have to be more involved than we have the time to, or than most of us have the time to. That's the same way how the government has gotten in the condition that it's gotten into, because we're like, okay, well, we have election day off. They gave us time to vote. We vote now, we can wipe our hands clean of that. And like, that's not the reality of it. There's so much more we need to do as constituents to make sure that our government is serving us in the way that we elected them. And they know we don't have time to do that. They know we don't have energy to do that. And that's why shit is the way it is. Like, it's not great to have to continuously keep tabs on fucking everything, but like, we really do need eyes and ears everywhere. And it fucking sucks, for lack of a better word. All right, I'm trying to keep an eye out. So it was this 7, 8.
Jesus.
What?
Tom Ferry, founder and executive director of the Aspen Institute Sports and Society program. There is a great demand for kids to play sports, and parents will spend money they don't have.
Jesus.
That was the opening of the thing. Money chases money. They said that in recent studies, they found that 2 in 10 parents of kids who are in these youth sports think that their kid has a chance of playing Division I sports. 1 in 10 thinks their chance might have a chance one day to go pro. So they're not worried about the 90% of parents that don't think their kids can go pro, the 80% of parents that don't think their kid can go pro. They want to milk that 10 to 20% for every last cent they can.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, I guess that's why they're rich and own these companies, and I'm not.
Yeah, but it's also like you are. This is almost like the lottery. You know what I mean? Like, you're preying on the lowest of the, not the lowest of low, but like the most downtrodden people that there are, right? People who are, like living in their car, but making sure that they get their son to practice because they think their son making it to the league is going to get them a house. You know what I mean? Like, it's
right. Like that. That's the plan they have that they think makes the most sense to secure their future and their children's future. And like,
and
what
your
a sad
plan
statement.
is to turn the screws on these people harder.
What?
I'm saying
that's not my plan.
No, private equities.
Oh.
I'm saying, like, if you legitimately think you have the chance of getting your kid there,
right,
they're gonna turn the pressure up and make it be, where this was $1,100 a year, and that was already almost an unfeasible number to hit. We're now going to make it 18. We're going to make it 21 and see how much you will work yourself to the bone to follow this, which in 90% of even those cases is a pipe dream,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they know it's, like they find places where it's like, what are the areas where people will spend endless amounts of money? They did it, for men, it's like to get more chicks and to appear more masculine. For women, it's to look younger, to be more, traditionally beautiful. For people who have children, it's what they would do they'll do anything to take care of their children. Like anything, you can just keep exploiting anything. All right, let's head into GUUURL now. And there's a lot of municipal stuff in here. I'm going to switch back and forth a little bit, see what we can get through again. There's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about this week. I'm going to skip to this Comey one. I think the James Comey case is very interesting. This is what to know about Lindsay Halligan's big grand jury revelation at James Comey's vindictive prosecution hearing. So there's a lot here. I was kind of like trying to make sure I understood everything that was going on here. The hearing Wednesday morning today in the case against former FBI Director James Comey ended with a revelation by prosecutors and a conundrum. If a full grand jury never reviewed the final set of charges handed up against Comey, are they void? The question arose after a shocking back and forth where prosecutors conceded that instead of presenting a new indictment to the grand jury after it declined to approve one of 3 counts, interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan simply brought an altered version, omitting the rejected count, to the magistrate's courtroom for the grand jury's four-person to sign. So just the wrong indictment. Her admission sent shockwaves through the courtroom on Wednesday, where attorneys were gathered to argue a separate legal issue of whether Comey was charged only because of President Donald Trump's animus toward him. We don't need a jury to decide that. What will happen to the criminal case was not immediately clear. Judge Michael Nachmanoff, despite appearing exasperated and taking several seconds of silence to take in what the prosecutors admitted, did not give away whether he viewed the issue as a procedural or fatal error. Nachmanoff did not make any rulings from the bench, saying that the issues before him were too weighty to immediately decide. But the judge asked the Justice Department to address Wednesday their legal interpretation of what happened with the grand jury, and the revelation is likely to play into another ongoing fight in the case where defense attorneys have asserted that federal investigators and top prosecutor Halligan mishandled the case. In a brief filed Wednesday evening, the Justice Department defended Halligan's grand jury presentation and said the case should not be dismissed. The final indictment was reviewed by the grand jury foreperson and another representative, and then explained on the record in open court that it was reflective of the grand jury vote, the Justice Department wrote. The former FBI director has pleaded not guilty to lying during congressional testimony. The stunning admission. Nachmanoff called on Halligan, Trump's hand-picked U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who secured the indictment against Comey by herself, to explain exactly what grand jurors did or did not see. Halligan appeared frustrated as she confirmed that only the foreperson and one other juror, not the entire grand juror, saw the final indictment. In the brief exchange, she tried to answer the judge before he finished asking his question and concluded the exchange with a terse okay. The back and forth lasted about 1 minute. Nachmanoff also trained his attention on a different prosecutor on the case, Tyler Lemons, and asked him to explicitly confirm that the final document was never presented to the grand jury. I wasn't there, but that is my understanding, Lemons said. After the hearing concluded, people connected with the prosecutor's office told CNN that they weren't sure how problematic Halligan's admission will be for the case. Some may consider it a clerical error that could be fixed. Wild. While others see a possibility it could be the fatal flaw in the case, as Comey's team initially argued on Wednesday. Prosecutors have 6 months to cure an indictment. Oh, my favorite word, bringing me back to the mayoral election. Prosecutors have 6 months to cure an indictment that was dismissed over legal issues, according to the Justice Department manual, even if the statute of limitations has expired, as is the case for Comey's charges. Comey's attorney, Michael Dreeben, said that given the testimony of the prosecutor, no indictment was returned. And even if it is a legal problem, a grand jury document flub may pale in comparison to other issues that have arisen in the case and are still playing out in court, including regarding what Halligan told the grand jurors about Comey's rights, the evidence, and the law. Grand jury transcripts. The issue over the indictment could also aid in defense attorneys' efforts to gain access to the grand jury transcripts, an issue that is currently before a magistrate judge in the same courthouse. The judge initially allowed Comey's team to have access to the grand jury material, finding in his own review that the record points to a disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps, quote. Prosecutors quickly asked the magistrate judge to pause the order so that they could file an appeal, which the magistrate judge allowed. Ms. Halligan was not a puppet. The hearing focused primarily on defense attorneys' efforts to have the case dismissed because they argue it was brought at the direction of Trump and born from his animosity toward Comey. Again, yes, we know this. The president of the United States has caused the executive branch to prosecute a perceived enemy, Dreeben began his arguments. Dreeben, citing a social media post from Trump addressed to the attorney general and calling for the prosecution of Comey and other political enemies, argued that the president has gone after the former director to punish Mr. Comey for speaking out against him. Lemons pushed back, arguing that Comey was making inferential leaps in arguing that the case is selective and vindictive. The prosecutor said that there is no proof that Halligan took Trump's social media post, quote, as a charge. Ms. Halligan was not a puppet, he added. Still, the judge questioned what independent examination could she have made in the few days between her appointment and the charges being brought against Comey. The timeline doesn't add up. The math isn't mathing. DOJ refuses to say if a memo declining to prosecute Comey exists. Nachmanoff also pressed Lemons on whether previous prosecutors who worked on the case before Halligan's appointment had submitted a memo recommending that Comey not be prosecuted. Lemons told the judge that someone in Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's office told him he couldn't disclose privileged information without their permission, which included the existence of any memo. At this point, my position would be whether there was a declination memo is privileged, Lemons said, adding that I don't know in the world of documents that there is a declination memo. Nachmanoff challenged the assertion, pushing Lemons to eventually say that someone in the Deputy Attorney General's office had instructed him not to say anything. Asked why, Lemons demurred, conceding briefly that he has reviewed draft memorandums, both declination and prosecution memos, and other internal communications, but declined to give additional details. I hope you understand that I'm trying to answer your questions, Lemons said. Justice Department defends Halligan's work. Of course they do. Federal prosecutors in their Wednesday brief defended Lindsay Halligan's handling of the grand jury proceedings against Comey. At the end of Wednesday's hearing, Nachmanoff instructed the parties to review a case in Washington, D.C. from the late 1960s that dealt with similar grand jury issues. But in that case, prosecutors argued in their brief the grand jury never saw any version of the eventual indictment. In this case, the grand jury was provided the proposed indictment, deliberated, and determined that probable cause existed to believe that the defendant had committed the crimes charged in 2 counts, prosecutors said. The grand jury did not hand up an indictment on a 3rd charge prosecutors attempted to bring against Comey. After their vote, according to prosecutors, only the 4-person and 1 other grand juror remained when a final version of the indictment that omitted the 3rd charge that was rejected was signed by the 4-person. Only the numbering of the counts, i.e. proposed count 2 became count 1 and proposed count 3 became count 2, and the paragraphs differ, prosecutors said in their brief. Prosecutors argue the case doesn't need to be dismissed, given that the grand jury were presented with 2 counts on which it voted to return an indictment and, in fact, voted upon those counts. Grand jury 4-person, as the representative of the grand jury, endorsed the revised 2-count indictment by signing it and explaining on the record in open court that the indictment reflected the vote of the grand jury, prosecutors continued. A magistrate judge earlier this week made the rare decision to order prosecutors to give Comey's team all grand jury materials, including transcripts and recordings of the secret process. That judge, William Fitzpatrick, said his review of those transcripts and recordings suggested that the grand jury could have been shown privileged evidence or given false instructions by the attorney who presented the case, Lindsay Halligan. Prosecutors strongly pushed back against that too, arguing Fitzpatrick had quoted portions of Halligan's presentation and not her statements in full. The magistrate judge's recommendation is grounded in misreadings of the transcript, incorrect legal conclusions, and factual assumptions that the record directly disproves, prosecutors wrote. The U.S. attorney did not misstate the law. The grand jury was not misled. And the transcript shows a routine, regular presentation of the indictment, they said. It says this story has been updated with additional details. So, business as usual. We got another pageant gal on the case. And I'm not saying that, beautiful women cannot also be intelligent lawyers. Of course, that's not the case. But it's just like, these are all people who have been in the Trump universe for a long time, now being, given high-level positions. And, I'm sure, if she's making this decision within, a couple of days of her getting this office, that it was decided upon, previously between her and Trump in talks of her getting this position, that if she wanted the position, this is something that she would have to have a case against Comey. She would have to create a case against Comey. There's no way that wasn't a conversation that was had. Anyway,
I mean, there's literally a True Social post that was very clearly meant to be a DM where he says, I don't care, find out, whatever. And then 2 weeks after this woman takes the job, what are we doing?
Right. He was just like, let me find someone in my universe who I either have, who I have, garbage on, who I have dirt on, who owes me something, who I know will do anything for a chance at a good job or a piece of power or attention or money or whatever it is, And unfortunately, there are people like that will kind of always exist. And when people finally turn on Trump, or when people finally have had enough, whatever their, moral too much is, whatever that means to them, to each of these individual people, he disposes of them many times, turns on them, and finds someone else to do his bidding. It's the same exact pattern every single freaking time. Let me see. I wanted to see a little bit about, an update of what Donald Trump is doing over in Venezuela, because, I feel like this is going to start affecting us soon. Why won't this open? I'm just going to open it in a different thing. Trump covert Venezuela. It's a New York Times article. Okay, here it is. This is from the New York Times. Sorry, I'm not tired. I just keep yawning. I don't get enough oxygen into my system somehow. Trump said to authorize CIA plans for covert action in Venezuela. The president, and this is about that narco-terrorism, that's the impetus for this, or the made-up impetus for this that we're all talking about. The president has signed off on possible operations inside Venezuela, but has also reopened back-channel communications with the government of President Nicolas Maduro. This is by Tyler Pager, Julian E. Barnes, and Eric Schmidt at the New York Times. With the largest U.S. aircraft carrier now positioned in the Caribbean, President Trump has approved additional measures to pressure Venezuela and prepare for the possibility of a broader military campaign, according to multiple people briefed on the matter. Mr. Trump has signed off on CIA plans for covert measures inside Venezuela, operations that could be meant to prepare a battlefield for further action, these people said. At the same time, they said he has authorized a new round of back-channel negotiations that at one point resulted in President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela offering to step down after a delay of a couple of years, a proposal the White House rejected. It is not clear what the covert actions might be or when any of them might be carried out. Mr. Trump has not yet authorized combat forces on the ground in Venezuela, so the next phase of the administration's escalating pressure campaign on the Maduro government could be sabotage or some sort of cyber, psychological, or information operations. The president has not made a decision about the broader course of action to pursue in Venezuela, nor publicly articulated his ultimate goal beyond stemming the flow of drugs from the region. And military and CIA planners have prepared multiple options for different contingencies. Though what if we then find out that he's like sold the right to drug trafficking to one of his like billionaire buddies? Cocaine by Blackstone, or something like that. Military planners have prepared lists of potential drug facilities that could be struck. The Pentagon is also planning for strikes on military units close to Mr. Maduro. Mr. Trump held 2 meetings in the White House Situation Room last week to discuss Venezuela and review options with his senior advisors. Any covert action by the CIA would probably come before such military strikes. Both the White House and the CIA declined to comment on Mr. Trump's order, even as Mr. Trump has told the CIA to prepare multiple possible secret operations inside Venezuela. He also opened up back-channel negotiations with Mr. Maduro after cutting off such talks last month for a brief time, people briefed on the matter said. In those informal talks, Mr. Maduro has signaled a willingness to offer access to his country's oil wealth to American energy companies. Mr. Trump acknowledged those talks in a fashion on Sunday. Quote, "We may be having some discussions with Mr. Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out," Mr. Trump said. While Mr. Trump emphasizes Venezuela's role in the drug trade or illegal immigration when he discusses the issue in public, he has discussed in private the country's huge oil reserves and American companies gaining access to them. Venezuelan officials have told Americans that Mr. Maduro might be willing to step down after a transition of 2 to 3 years, according to the people briefed on the matter. Any delay in Mr. Maduro's giving up power is a non-starter with the White House. But despite the apparent impasse, the back-channel negotiations show that a diplomatic solution is still possible. People briefed on the discussions say it is not clear what outcome the president favors. Mr. Trump could agree to a diplomatic deal to gain more access to the Venezuela oil resources for American companies. He could push for a resolution that allows Mr. Maduro to voluntarily give up power, or he could demand that the United States forcibly remove the Venezuelan dictator. Even with the endgame uncertain, the White House has settled on a strategy of ratcheting up the pressure on Mr. Maduro while giving Mr. Trump options on how he might want to bring the campaign against Venezuela to a conclusion. Called Operation Southern Spear, the massive buildup of American naval forces in the Caribbean is the largest since the Cuban Missile Crisis and the blockade of Cuba in 1962. The carrier, Gerald R. Ford, arrived in the Caribbean over the weekend, and there are now 15,000 troops in the region, including Marines on amphibious ships and personnel at military bases in Puerto Rico. But the military buildup is only the most obvious of a multifaceted pressure campaign. The State Department has announced that effective November 24th, it will designate Cartel de las Soles a terrorist organization. Here we go. Terrorist is in the eye of the beholder. While Cartel de las Soles is not a cartel in the traditional sense, it is a way for the Trump administration to label a broad swath of Mr. Maduro's government a terrorism organization, potentially paving the way for military action, but also pressuring the government. And again, this is the thing. It's like, okay, well, once we, label this a terrorist group or a terrorist organization, well, then they're the enemy. Then we got to do whatever we have to do, whatever is within our means to take them down. That is why terrorism is in the eye of the beholder. It's a lot of strategy, a lot of chess playing here. Mr. Trump's public comments in recent days have reflected the uncertainty over the endgame. Even as he increases the pressure. Mr. Trump said on Monday that he had not ruled out ground forces going into Venezuela and held out the possibility of direct negotiations with Mr. Maduro. "I don't rule out anything," Mr. Trump said. "We just have to take care of Venezuela." The United States has launched 21 known strikes on boats that the administration says were smuggling drugs, killing at least 83 people. Mr. Trump has said ample intelligence justifies the strikes, but but administration officials have not yet provided detailed evidence of the cargo the boats were carrying. So again, kind of like we were talking about earlier on the show, Donald Trump is just saying, well, I'm pretty sure these are these are people who are trafficking drugs, so let's just, kill everyone on these ships. Who maybe they were cargo ships, carrying toilet paper. We don't really know. We're just guessing here. Those strikes have been conducted without congressional authorization, prompting criticism from legal experts and Democrats in Congress that the administration is intentionally targeting civilians who may be suspected of crimes but are not combatants. Mr. Trump, at least after the early strikes, said that the United States had targeted fentanyl, a deadly synthetic opioid that has caused tens of thousands of overdose deaths. But military officials in closed-door meetings with Congress have acknowledged that the boats are carrying cocaine, not fentanyl. And we need cocaine. Or we could just get rid of that, too. That might also be a good idea. All right, wild times, guys. Let's just murder anyone we think might have done something bad ever.
No, let's just you're missing the forest from the trees here. Let's murder anyone who has stuff we want and cover it up in altruistic Christian national values.
Well, I wasn't missing that. I said that earlier. I said Trump, I'm sure, just wants to cut off them trafficking drugs so he can somehow monetize trafficking drugs.
No, the article said he wants the oil. Oil will be the
Yes,
that'll be the barter ship to stop.
There'll be that too, but do you not think he's going to get into the depths of like the most dastardly things he get? Like, do we not think that he's like? He's like, how do we also monetize this?
Okay.
They're not going to write that in the fucking article.
First and foremost, we know the fentanyl's not coming from Venezuela, so this whole thing is stupid. The fentanyl's coming from Mexico and China. Like, that's been proven a number of times over.
He doesn't. Trump just says whatever he wants.
Yes.
Whatever he says is a fact. Whatever he says, he goes, oh no, you guys actually thought the fentanyl was coming from Mexico and China. That's why, because the other presidents before me were dumb. They didn't really know where the fentanyl was coming from. I'm the president now, and I know where the fentanyl is coming from. The fentanyl is coming from Venezuela. You guys just didn't see that before. Gaslighting.
Right. I'm just saying none of this it's all nonsense. Yeah. Every single like the narco terrorists that he was bombing were fishing boats. Like, what are we doing here?
Whatever we want.
No,
or whatever he wants.
It doesn't seem that this really does feel like the final lashings of like like in a horror movie or like a monster movie when they take down Godzilla and he's like down and out and then like he spazzes out and like pops up again and like knocks down one more building. Yeah. Like that's kind of what this feels like, is like we've been knocked down a couple of times and we're just hitting like lashing out at whatever's left on the way down. And
it's also like, what are the repercussions going to be for America moving forward in the coming administrations, for all these places that we've pissed off, for, countries whose people that we have, murdered unjustly for our own selfish pursuits. I mean, this is really bad. All right. Well, let's move into some municipal politics because a lot's going on there. First, I just wanted to point out, because I don't think we talked about this last week, because I don't even know. It would have happened because Election Day had happened. But, Seattle, did we talk about the new mayor of Seattle at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I think this is just, again, like, because Zoran Mamdani's election was certainly really important, but I don't think we don't want to just only focus on Zoran. So again, I want to go across the country and kind of highlight a lot of people who are doing interesting things, who are getting into leadership positions. And this is from Axios Seattle. Just really quick, wanted to introduce you, if you're not familiar, to the Seattle's mayor-elect, Katie Wilson, also a Democratic Socialist. Seattle's next mayor, community organizer Katie Wilson, has never held elected office, but she's not new to local politics. Wilson, 43, unseated incumbent Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell in the November 4th election after focusing her campaign on addressing Seattle's housing affordability crisis and persistent homelessness. Before running for mayor, Wilson led ballot measure campaigns to pass higher minimum wages in cities near Seattle and helped push several suburban city councils to pass new renter protections. She also was a co-architect of Seattle's Jumpstart payroll expense tax, which targets large, high-paying employers like Amazon. King County Council member Teresa Mosqueda told Axios. She is no stranger to City Hall, said Mosqueda, who championed the tax while on the Seattle City Council. She's been there for over a decade working on issues. Here are a few things to know about Wilson and her background. She's big on public transit. So again, we see in these successful mayoral campaigns a lot of focus on the same key issues, right? These key American issues. So she's big on public transit. The nonprofit Wilson co-founded in 2011, the Transit Riders Union, helped successfully lobby King County to offer subsidized transit passes for low-income riders. Wilson also was instrumental in pushing Seattle to expand free transit passes for Seattle public school students around that time, former city council member Mike O'Brien told Axios. And again, it differs city by city, but if you are someone who is struggling financially, your city very well may offer some kind of subsidized transit pass program or free transit program, depending on your income. But sometimes you have to dig a little bit to find out that these opportunities and resources exist, which is why the internet is nice because, you can go to the library, even if you don't have internet yourself, you can look it up. If you have a smartphone, you can look it up. You can get this information to get the resources you need. But, I think one of the major downfall of a lot of municipalities is that we shouldn't have to do so much digging as residents of a city to figure out that more help is available to us, right? It should kind of all be in one place, really easily accessible. You should be able to, search ways in which you can get your weekly or monthly expenses down for things that you must need to do, such as public transit. She considers herself a democratic socialist. While it's not a label Wilson has emphasized while campaigning, she has told reporters she's fine with being called a socialist or a democratic socialist. That's caused many to draw parallels between her and New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, another democratic socialist who campaigned on affordability issues this year. She's a tax policy wonk. Besides helping author the city's Jumpstart tax, Wilson was heavily involved in crafting a progressive income tax the Seattle City Council approved in 2017, former City Council member Lisa Herbold told Axios. That attempt to tax wealthy people at a higher rate was later struck down by a state court, which is interesting. That's just interesting. Like, just put that in your brain for when politicians in the future bring up such policy. Or propose such policy, I should say. But the ruling clarified that cities like Seattle could legally impose a 1% flat income tax, something that wasn't clear before under state law, Herbold said. She dropped out of Oxford. Wilson, the daughter of two biology professors, told the Seattle Times she quit her studies at Oxford University 6 weeks short of graduating, so she would be forced to find out what the real world is all about. Her thought at the time was, I'm going to plunge in and burn a bridge, so I really have to do that, Wilson told the newspaper. Kind of an interesting character. She's moved away from defunding the police. So again, when we're talking about parallels, a lot of parallels certainly between her and Zoran. Also even, being the child of a professor. She's moved away from defunding the police. In 2020, Wilson was involved in a coalition that advocated cutting police funding by 50%. Although she still thinks many 911 calls can be handled by unarmed civilian responders, cutting police staffing to that degree is part of what that movement got wrong, Wilson said during a debate this year. Wow, I love that someone who can admit they were wrong in politics. She didn't decide to run until February. So again, a lot of these, people who are making decisions rather last minute. Again, a lot of people thought it was crazy that I entered the race in January. It wasn't crazy. She entered the race in February. I think it's almost sometimes better to not have this crazy long amount of time that you have to work in, because first of all, you're going to use all your time extremely wisely, and it's less time for people to dig up dirt, and it's also really hard to maintain momentum, right? I think my mic went out. Shit. 1 second. Test. Okay, sorry, a plug went out. It's really hard to maintain momentum, especially the big kind of momentum that we saw during Zoran Mamdani's campaign. So I actually think that's pretty smart. Again, Zoran only entered the race in October, which for for the kind of large campaign that he ended up running was very interesting. So it goes on. She didn't decide to run until February. Wilson has said she decided to jump into the race after Harold did not support a ballot measure Seattle voters passed in February to raise taxes on businesses to pay for social housing. That's a type of mixed income public housing that Seattle voters previously approved in 2023. So, she's saying, okay, if you're just going to go against what the constituents want, and you don't really you're not really supposed to do that, because again, the elected officials work for us as the constituents. So if you're not going to do right by the people of Seattle, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and I'm going to try to do right by the people of Seattle, and I hope that she does. In a speech Thursday, she said that she sensed that people of Seattle and its government were out of step and that voters were in search of a new direction. What's next? Wilson says she plans to announce more details about who will serve in her administration in the coming days and weeks, which she's already started doing. She's already, started announcing her transition team, et cetera, et cetera. But I just wanted to give you kind of just a little bit this is if we're talking municipal politics, mayor of Seattle, this is someone who we want to keep our eye on, who potentially could be, part of this new wave of leftist leaders that we're seeing. All right, let's move on here. Okay, so kind of the municipal story of the week here in New York City. And I think this is really important just because Zoran Mamdani has exploded now. As predicted, he now has more followers on Instagram. Not that that's that's not the gauge for everything in this world, but I think it is some kind of a measuring tool, right? And so I knew this was going to happen, but he officially has more Instagram followers than AOC. I still think justice for AOC. She's been in the game for a lot longer, and that does bother me a little bit. But people from all over the world are following Zoran Mamdani in a way that they now have come to follow AOC. But I don't think right out of the gates it was like that. I would have to go back and look though. So he has 10.4 million followers now. Again, I think AOC is 9.5. But the big talk of the town is there's this city council member named Osse, who is also and has been for a while very big, charismatic on social media, makes a lot of content. He's super young. He's 27, I believe. He's black. He's queer. Posted a picture with his boyfriend recently. Did a hard launch of his partner on Instagram or something. We'll talk about that in a second, because of course, people had to, make him into this celebrity thing. But he, wanted challenge, or I'm sorry, he wanted to primary Hakeem Jeffries. He has filed the paperwork, and Zoran and AOC are not supporting this, which is kind of crazy because Zoran and Chi Osse have been like this. I'm crossing my fingers if you're listening. They have been thick as thieves this whole time. Go down not that far on Chi Osse's Instagram, and you will find a picture of him and Zoran each doing half of a heart with their hands. Like they were together on this. And it's interesting because, and I'm not, there obviously you need strategy involved, and you can't just do this thing where, I give roles in my administration, or I support blindly anyone who has supported me. You have to be strategic, and you have to, at the end of the day, come through and do whatever you have to do to make the policy that you promised the voters come to fruition, right? But two interesting things have happened. So number one, he's not supporting Chi Osse, who I don't believe has officially announced that he's going to primary Hakeem Jeffries, but has filed the paperwork, which is public knowledge. So you can just look on the, the database on, nyc.gov or whatever it is. The moment I filed to run for mayor, you could tell that was available, or that information was available, right? And the second thing is, we all thought, because after Brad Lander, endorsed or cross-endorsed in the primaries and then ultimately endorsed in the general, Zoran Mamdani, that Brad would be getting a pretty juicy spot in Zoran Mamdani's administration, but that does not seem to be the case. And I was very surprised when I heard the announcement that Brad Lander was going to primary Dan Goldman. Go against Dan Goldman, who is the congressperson for my district in New York City. And I was like, that's interesting, to kind of move to, this career in municipal politics that you've had for some time, especially with supporting the mayor, to then going into, even though you're representing a district, a thing where you're working, much, half your time in DC, and you're working on, completely different policy, really. You're going from municipal policy to federal policy. It just seemed weird for someone like Brad Lander, who I believe is 56 at that point in your career, to make a transition like that. So anyway, and my mom actually found this article and sent it to me that she found, and said she's found it fascinating. And I don't know if we'll go through the whole thing, but it says this is from, when is this from? November 16th, it was updated. The strategic uncoupling of Zoran Mamdani and Brad Lander. This is from the New York Times. Mr. Lander, the New York City controller, campaigned with Mr. Mamdani and once hoped to join him in City Hall. Now he is eyeing a congressional seat. So Zoran Mamdani was in the final chaotic sprint to Election Day in the New York City mayor's race when he stepped off the campaign trail for an important meeting. Sitting with him was Brad Lander, the city controller, who had become one of his closest allies. Their progressive bromance during the Democratic primary in June had helped clinch Mr. Mamdani's victory and left Mr. Lander gunning for City Hall too, hopefully as his top deputy, which is kind of anyone who was, looking at this thought that's what was going to happen. And it was also, a good strategic move ahead of time. Like, they never announced that, that if Zoran was elected mayor, that Brad was going to assume this role. But it was definitely kind of like assumed by many people, I think, that he would have a pretty top role, be deputy mayor. And I think it also made a lot of Jewish voters who might have been on the fence, because this whole fucking race ended up being about Israel and Gaza, even though it's not a municipal issue. It made a lot of Jewish voters, feel comfortable in voting for Mamdani, knowing that Miss Brad Lander, who is Jewish and outspoken about it, not an Israel supporter though, that he that he would be by Zoran's side. And so this is interesting. Now you go, did Brad know the whole, you're thinking at this point, did Brad know the whole time? Oh, wow, was this just a chess move to get those additional Jewish voters? Does this feel like, I was the kind of had a wrong assessment of what was going to happen? Again, we go on. But when they met on a chaotic Sunday in late October amid church services and canvas launches, Mr. Mamdani, a state assemblyman, wanted to talk about a different idea that Mr. Lander had floated. He told the controller that he would like to continue their partnership by supporting him in a primary challenge against Representative Daniel Goldman, a vulnerable and more moderate Democrat, according to 3 people familiar with the exchange. And 2 reasons, Dan Goldman, again, my congressperson, who I did, I considered it, but I'm like, he has a lot of money, but now in very recent weeks, because he is taking a lot of, or has taken a lot of money from AIPAC, he really has a target on him. So it's not just him being moderate. The real thing here, if you're going on to liberal spaces online, the real problem with Dan Goldman, I would say, is less that he's moderate and more that he is an AIPAC guy, because that has just become this target that goes on your back. We saw recently AOC post, on her Instagram timeline that she has taken $0 from AIPAC, because this is something that constituents will now demand of many of their representatives. As for the high-level administration post Mr. Lander 56 had also coveted, Mr. Mamdani told him that he planned to go in a different direction. Why? Can you imagine? You help someone win an election. I mean, it's not, Brad Lander wasn't going to win the election anyway. Even if Zoran Mamdani wasn't in the picture, Brad Lander just didn't have momentum. And that's why I was like, when I saw him, I was like, this is the front runner. This guy just didn't have the momentum that we needed to win the mayoral race. And I was right. The sharp changeup has captivated New York's political chattering class since it spilled into public in recent days, setting the stage for a potentially explosive House primary in the heart of New York City. And it's very interesting now, knowing this Osse stuff, that it's that Zoran thinks it's fine that Brad Lander primary Dan Goldman, but that he doesn't think it's okay for Osse to primary Hakeem Jeffries. Obviously, Hakeem Jeffries more powerful than Dan Goldman. Dan Goldman, though, still pretty powerful. And loaded. Again, I looked into this extensively because, you don't have to run in your own district, but, your own district is where you're going to look first if you're thinking of running. Mr. Mamdani's quiet maneuvering, much of which has not been previously reported, has also offered an early window into the unsentimental calculations guiding the incoming mayor as he builds his administration and flexes his political muscle. Asked to comment for this story, Mr. Mamdani's spokeswoman, Dora Pakek, said simply that Mr. Lander continues to be a trusted ally and partner to the mayor-elect, but other supporters who have spoken to him added that Mr. Mamdani, a sharp critic of Israel, was eager to unseat Mr. Goldman, whose views on the war in Gaza and other issues are well to his right. And that's where you get what's really happening here. Again, we can talk all day and we can make excuses about how it's because his views in general are moderate, but this quote right here just says this is all about Israel, which is, again, a point I've brought up many times. And again, this is a constructive criticism, really, or just a kind of a question mark that I have always had around Zoran, and that is, it's obvious, you haven't tried to hide it, that your whole life you've been dedicated to freeing Palestine. That's your whole life. You're on record. You've always done that. That is your passion, your activism work. Great, wonderful. Why are you in municipal politics? And now we see him making strategic moves where that is the primary issue. And that just like concerns me as a resident of a city that needs so much help, that needs so much guidance on these municipal issues, that really needs affordability, that needs more reliable transit, that needs safer streets, that needs, to not lose artists to other cities, that needs a public school system that no matter what income class you are born into, you get a fair chance at pursuing your goals because you have education that did right by you the way other states in the United States are able to provide. That really conquers this affordable housing crisis, this mental health crisis. It's just like, well, it seems like when all your chess moves are completely dedicated to your concerns around Israel, is your focus, is your head in the game? That's my question. Is your head in the game? Or did you just see, winning this position as mayor as what you need, as the highest level position you could get to continue your passion of freeing Palestine? Which again, great, noble, love your pursuit, love a lifelong passion for something. I talk about that all the time. Figure out what your passion is and fucking do that and pursue that your whole life. But it just never made sense to me that if that's your passion, why you're running for mayor of New York City. And here, this was pointing 1,000 arrows at that again. People who have spoken, because it's like, why didn't you try to unseat Dan Goldman then? People who have spoken with Mr. Lander recently said he had played down the sting of being passed over for a top city post. So he's pissed, he is. Brad's moral clarity, his willingness to use his voice to defend our democracy and put his body on the line to protect our neighbors are all vitally important and unfortunately all too rare, said his top advisor, Allison Hirsch. She said he would bring these qualities to Washington, quote, if he chooses to run. The relationship between Mr. Lander and Mr. Mamdani has been the subject of unusual interest since the two men rolled out a novel cross-endorsement in June as competing candidates for mayor. Politicians often talk about forming alliances to defeat a common enemy, in this case, former Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, but rarely follow through. Mr. Lander, a well-known progressive with 15 years in public office, vouched for Mr. Mamdani, a 34-year-old Muslim and Democratic Socialist with fellow Jewish Democrats. And after federal agents arrested Mr. Lander as he escorted migrants in an immigration courthouse, he used some of the attention to boost his former rival. On the night of his primary victory, Mr. Mamdani put his arm around Mr. Lander and said they had modeled the politics of the future, one of partnership and of sincerity. Many progressive New Yorkers supporting Mr. Mamdani, but uncertain about his youth, with just 5 years in the state assembly under his belt, felt comforted by the prospect of Mr. Lander joining City Hall as a partner overseeing the city's day-to-day operations, which again, that was in addition to being Jewish, being this a senior, not his age, but he was just a senior in politics. He was seasoned. Mr. Lander clearly liked that idea too. At least 4 fellow elected officials who spoke directly with him in the weeks after the primary told the New York Times that they had come away with the impression that he badly wanted the job and was under serious consideration. But interviews with more than a dozen advisors and allies of both men suggest that the relationship was always more complicated than it looked publicly. It was, they said, a shotgun political marriage of shared values that strained from constant public speculation and competing priorities. Mr. Mamdani and Mr. Lander discussed the vague possibility of working together in government when they first met before the primary to iron out their cross-endorsement over Lebanese food. Despite rampant speculation, no position was ever promised, according to the people familiar with their interactions who were not authorized to discuss them publicly. I mean, everything's a move. Even the fact that they said that they ironed it out over Lebanese food, everything's a chess move. In July, when questions about Mr. Lander's position in a potential administration reached a fever pitch, Mr. Mamdani grew frustrated and asked Mr. Lander to tamp it down in a conversation Gothamist first reported. In public, Mr. Mamdani repeatedly said that no personnel decisions had been made. Mr. Mamdani eventually did consider Mr. Lander for first deputy mayor, alongside other candidates who included Daniel Garodnick, the head of the Department of City Planning, and Anthony Shoris and Dean Fuleihan, two former first deputy mayors. And again, when you look at at least Mamdani's transition team, a lot of people from the de Blasio administration are in there, right? The mayor-elect told associates that he needed a seasoned bureaucrat who had overseen a city budget, weathered a mayoral crisis, and moved legislation through Albany. Mr. Mamdani concluded that Mr. Lander, a longtime politician whose earlier job was running a small nonprofit that focuses on affordable housing, was simply not it. On Monday, Mr. Mamdani announced that Mr. Fuleihan, a veteran of city and state government, would reprise the role he had once held under Mayor Bill de Blasio. Allies and advisors of Mr. Lander said he never assumed he had a job in City Hall locked down and began laying the groundwork in the spring before the primary for a potential run against Mr. Goldman. The congressman's district, New York's 10th, connects Brooklyn and Manhattan and voted overwhelmingly for Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Goldman remained neutral in the general election. Those conversations have since accelerated, including at an annual post-election gathering of New York's political class in Puerto Rico. So I heard about this like the first caucus I went to back in February, very weeks after I had announced that I was running, right? I heard about this post-election gathering in Puerto Rico, and it is like where basically, they city council kind of talks amongst themselves and they decide which city council member is the one who's going to have the mayor's ear. I mean, it just sounded truly, guys, it sounded like a fucking nightmare. It sounded like a fucking nightmare. So I don't know. Someone should make a documentary about that one day. Mr. Lander and Mr. Goldman both used the event to line up support, at one point dining feet from one another at Morton's Steakhouse. Just a weekend in Puerto Rico. First of all, why are we going to Puerto Rico? I'd like questions. It's like, let's all take what could potentially be a nice, relaxing weekend and just, not that you should be doing that, taking a nice, relaxing weekend. Obviously, you got to make a fucking plan for the city. But it just seemed like, let's go away in our political bubble, far away from the constituents and, play a political game of Survivor here on Puerto Rico and also get really drunk at the same time. Oh my God. Again, sent shivers down my spine the moment I heard about it. Mr. Lander has told other Democrats that he believes Mr. Goldman, a former federal prosecutor and Levi Strauss heir, is not meeting the political moment. Mr. Goldman, 49, won the seat in 2022 by beating several more progressive candidates who split the vote. Mr. Goldman has drawn praise for sharply questioning Trump administration officials in congressional hearings, but his more moderate positions on Israel and the war in Gaza have angered left-leaning constituents. It's not moderate positions. It's one position. It's his position on Israel. This is why everyone's attacking Dan Goldman. Do not let anyone tell you differently. That is what puts the target on your back. Which again, all right, but let's call a spade a spade. Mr. Lander, who has been a much firmer critic of Israel's handling of the war, has told allies he wants to take an activist posture toward the Trump administration. Now, Mr. Goldman is preparing for a fight. Simone Cantor, a spokesman, said, Simone can be a man's name? Sorry, that's not the point of this, but I just got distracted. Said Democrats should be focused on fighting Mr. Trump, not wasting time and money fighting other Democrats. Congress is not a consolation prize, but you'll be so many, as of now, unless I've missed anything, at least two of the people running for mayor immediately pivoted to Congress, which is so funny because, after I conceded, I had conceded for 3 seconds when my team and other people were asking me if I was, going to run again. And I said, let me have a freaking breather. And, so many people talked about Congress. And, obviously I had looked at Congress before I had looked at the mayor, and it just didn't make sense to me. The mayor made the most sense to me at the time, and still does. But it was so interesting to me because I'm like, that's a very interesting pivot there, just as far as like what you're covering, the issues that you need to talk about, your policy, and all that. So I just thought it was really weird. And, for me, when people were asking me that, I was like, maybe I'll run for Congress one day, but not right now because I would have to be ready by 2026. It didn't seem like there was enough time. And it does seem like quite a pivot. So right now, both Michael Blake, who I really like, and Brad Lander, who I also like, Mike loves Michael Blake. They have both, announced these Congress runs.
Please tell me Michael Blake is going for Richie Torres' seat.
He is.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's go.
He is.
There is justice in this world.
Yeah. And so again, with Richie Torres, it all goes back to Israel. And like, it makes more sense congressionally, that your focus is on Israel. Cause at least now we're dealing with federal policy.
Yeah, but when you say I'm representing the people of the Bronx by looking after Israel's best interest, people start to roll their eyes a little bit.
No, 100%. And that's kind of what I'm just saying here. It's like, I as important as it is to, stop the genocide in Gaza, we can't have that be the only thing that everyone's going on, And again, that's certainly not what Zoran ran on, but I'm interested to see now with the moves he's making and, looking under it, reading between the lines. Is that really what he's going for? Because that was my concern all along. And it's not a concern like, can Jewish people trust him? That was not to me the primary concern was like, does this person really want to be mayor? Or is this the stepping stone for your lifelong passion? And again, we see so many people making moves now, and it just follow, whether it's pro-Israel or anti, or pro-Palestine, whatever, anti-Israel, whatever it is, just follow it. And that's what all these big, especially Democrat on Democrat fights happening right now. That's what they're all about. And I just don't want the Democrats to lose sight of what initially got us into this problem of being a party that doesn't work, which was losing sight of what the average, everyday working American needs. And again, as important as the issue, the genocide in Gaza is to solve, we can't lose sight. It is not what is on most everyday Americans' minds from day to day. Like, I know that you are extremely passionate about this, Mike, but like, if you had the chance to vote for someone who wouldn't help you at all on a day to day, but would solve Gaza, or who would actually make your groceries cheaper, actually make it feasible that you could buy a home, created a public school system that you would feel comfortable sending your daughter to, who would you vote for?
In theory, I mean, whatever's going to make my life easier, right? I don't believe...
Exactly, and I love that because that's the honest answer, and it's a fair answer. And we so often ask like American voters to publicly make proclaim that they are going to vote for like the more virtuous answer. And at the end of the day, most people are just voting for who makes their daily life easier. And once we solve that, then everyone can get involved in these larger issues because we'll have so much more bandwidth to do it. So it really is, in my assessment, a win-win. More people can care about things that don't only affect them when they are taken care of by their government. It really is quite fucking simple. And again, like, Democrats were kind of getting it. Sorry, go ahead. I just really got into that sentence.
No, I get that. But I mean, the point I was making was Richie Torres is asked what he's doing to create, more affordable housing in his district in the Bronx. And before his answer to the question is over, he's talking about what a great ally to Israel he's been in Congress.
Richie Torres is ape shit. I think I even had to unfollow him because he was so crazy. And Richie Torres is a name that was brought up constantly. When I was running because he's actually a very interesting kind of case study if you want to go back a little bit, because he kind of had this energy of like this young guy who's really going to get stuff done and then very, very quickly became corrupt. So really a good case study to going into something with the right intentions and then fucking it all up.
Yeah, I just the thing that I'm getting at is like, if you're telling me, one side is for ending the genocide in Gaza and the other side is for making my life better, I don't know how any candidate who is Israel first is going to make the life of an American citizen better.
No. I know. And that's not what I was saying. I wasn't saying like Richie Torres is doing one thing and Michael Blake was doing another thing. I was just boiling it down to we need to we need to not start selling candidates as I'm going to stop the genocide as like the first thing. We just can't lose sight of these issues for everyday Americans.
No,
we have to package them together.
But I do think when you have somebody like Ted Cruz, right, who is like talking about how, my goal when I got elected to Congress was to be the most Israel first Congress.
Yeah, no, that's fucking crazy.
Right, I'm just saying a lot of these people stated in their campaign promise.
100%, and those people are crazy.
And it's like those people are certainly not going to help you. Somebody like, I don't think anyone's running on the like, let's stop the war in Gaza. I think that's like a feature of a campaign where the campaign
some people have started to heavily lean on it, and because they know it's a hot button issue.
Yeah, but I don't think like you're saying, that's not going to gain them any favor.
No, and Zoran was very smart. So no matter what he really feels in his heart, he ran on the right shit, and now it's like, all right, let's see what you're really we're doing.
Right.
I don't know. Again, it's just like it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not I want this guy to fail. Quite the opposite. It's just literally looking at what someone has done for the first 33 years of their life and following a pattern. It's pattern recognition, and then seeing what the work that their father has done. It's pure. I was working purely off pattern recognition and history. That is absolutely it. And then this article was like, and running again, primarying Dan Goldman was, let's see. Okay, so Congress is not a consolation prize, but if Brad feels compelled to make this about himself, then Dan will eagerly stand on his record of standing up to Trump, leading the opposition to ICE, and fighting for his constituents, he said, referring to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Hungry to oust Mr. Goldman, top officials from the local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, an integral organizing cog in the success of Mr. Mamdani's grassroots campaign, promised Mr. Lander over the summer that they would not endorse another candidate, according to 4 people with direct knowledge of the matter. But as Mr. Lander was awaiting word on whether he would land a position in City Hall, Councilwoman Alexa Aviles, a DSA member, began plotting her own run. Ms. Aviles's criticisms of Israel and her close ties to Mr. Mamdani's coalition would contrast sharply with Mr. Goldman's positions. Because of the uncertainty over whether Mr. Lander would be running against Mr. Goldman, the DSA's local chapter recently voted behind closed doors to endorse her. That endorsement is now in limbo, however, as leaders of various groups on the left attempt to head off a showdown that could fracture their coalition. Again, another reason why it's like you got to be very careful of just voting based on endorsements. These are all chess moves that are helping that you're not making an endorsement as an individual or as a group unless you think that person winning the election is going to directly serve your career or your organization. And can't no one tell me differently. Let's see. there's pictures here. The most important thing here is defeating Dan Goldman, who doesn't match the values of his constituents or the district, said Jasmine Gripper, a co-director of the left-leaning Working Families Party. We need to unite the field and have one candidate. Uline New, a progressive former assemblywoman who was runner-up to Mr. Goldman in 2022, has also spent months laying the groundwork for a potential primary run. Reached by phone, she declined to discuss her deliberations. The priority here is to make this district make sure this district has the best representation it can, she said. The standoff between Mr. Lander and Ms. Aviles, in particular, presents another test for Mr. Mamdani as he tries to expand the left's political power and gain the trust of New York's business class and political establishment, which hold more moderate views. Mr. Mamdani has privately told Ms. Aviles that he would support and campaign for Mr. Lander if he ran, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. The mayor, I think it would be so bad for optics if he didn't. Because first of all, I think it's a little bad for optics that he's not, having him as deputy mayor, but then to also not endorse his congressional run, that would be crazy. And that to me, optics-wise, would say, Mr. Mamdani, Mayor Mamdani, this is a guy you can't trust. His word doesn't mean shit, People notice stuff like that. You got to be loyal to to the friends who help you get to where you are, as long as they're not criminals. The mayor-elect has not spoken about the race publicly. Ms. Aviles did not respond to questions about her private conversations. The dynamic echoes another brewing drama in a neighboring district where Mr. Mamdani, we talked about this before, has privately tried to discourage Councilman Osse, an ally, from running against Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the top House Democrat. So far, neither Mr. Osse nor Ms. Aviles has backed down. Since her desire to challenge Mr. Goldman emerged last month, Ms. Aviles said she had received an outpouring of support from district residents thirsting for a change in leadership, would make a final decision once the uncertainty over the DSA's endorsement was resolved. So now what we possibly can see happening is like people with DSA ties, now that the DSA has such heat right now, just all this, deciding that they need to be the next representative and then ending up going against each other in races, splitting the vote, et cetera, et cetera. Just fucking very, very interesting shit to watch. I don't want to read these whole articles, but like the city also reported this week that Eric Adams is leaving, spitefully, of course, a big budget mess for Zoran Mamdani. He's leaving him a $4.7 billion hole. He's like approved like an extra was it million or billion? He increase the budget for city government spending in the current fiscal year by about $2 billion, making the budget in the city $118 billion, bequeathing a projected $4.7 billion deficit to be closed before the 2027 budget is adopted next summer. And he offered no plans to deal with federal aid cuts that could reach billions of dollars. And he just did that on purpose to, really try and make sure that the person who, got him out of office, who made sure that his tenure as mayor was only 4 years, really shoot him in the foot as best he can and do whatever he can to make sure that Zoran Mamdani doesn't succeed. And, very spiteful, very Eric Adams of him. Then we have Osse. I'm just trying to finish this drama because this is, and especially if you know the personalities of these players, it makes it even juicier, especially Osse, because go to his Instagram. It's gonna get Real Housewives real soon. And when did this come out? Because I just saw this on social. So I think I had thought because of his relationship with Zoran that he was previously a DSA member, but I think that this happened your mic is on, pretty recently when he saw the success of being a Democratic Socialist and what it did for Zoran. When did he become DSA member? There's no fucking thing on here. Okay, no, I was right. Okay, according to public statements, Osse joined the Democratic Socialists of America in 2020. Oh, but left shortly after as he felt his views and those of the organizations did not align. But now he's back because they're successful. Very interesting. He's also kind of a Nepo baby. His family is big music industry people, Grammy Award winners, et cetera, et cetera. Man, guys, just do a little digging. Do a little digging. Oh my God. Wow. All right, I'm trying to think. That's very interesting. So in 2020, his views didn't align with the DSA, but now in 2025, all of a sudden they do again because Zoran Mamdani won the election, and then the mayor of Seattle is also a Democratic Socialist. Come on, you guys. Yeah, and so he, there was this thing floating around in Jacobin.com today. Osse, why I became a socialist, blah, blah, blah. This big manifesto, if you want to read that. Very interesting. Then this article I found to be so fucking annoying. It's from queerty.com. New couple alert, October 1st of this year. New couple alert, rising political star Osse just did a boyfriend reveal. This is the kind of shit that drives me crazy. And I know that we're kind of like, eating it up a little bit. The left is kind of like loving it. But again, I'm going to hold strong on my viewpoint that politicians are not celebrities. They should not be treated as celebrities. They should not be, they should not have pieces like this written about them as if they are celebrities, because then when they start acting like celebrities, which means when they start acting self-serving, we're going to come back to here and go, oh, we'll wonder why, because we were treating them like celebrities, right? If they have, merch or whatever, it should be purely to fund the campaign. It shouldn't be like stuff that you're getting in a boutique somewhere else. If they are on a talk show, I don't hate that, but 80% of that interview should be them talking about policy, not yucking it up in a nonpartisan way, right? They should be. I understand the need to humanize people to get votes. So that's why I'm giving that 20%. If you're on Jimmy Fallon or something, you could tell a little anecdote about, the new dog you just adopted. But then I want 80% of the other time to be this a way to reach American voters who are not super politically savvy. This is your opportunity to break down policy in a really palatable way, to update us on what you have been doing while sitting in office or what you propose to do, or give us examples of how the policy that you want to bring to the table has worked in another city or another state or another country. That's the kind of shit I want to do. And for all these late night talk show hosts, and I know they have other, money and higher ups who they are beholden to. I understand that Jimmy Fallon really isn't in charge of Jimmy Fallon. I understand that. That being said, push it a little bit. You still are the face of the program. And if we need to demand more of these interviews and not just have it be people yucking it up, ask harder questions. Let me fucking know the information. Let me know what you're doing. I don't want to hear about your family vacation to Martha's Vineyard. I really don't. People are dying, Kim. So that article fucking pissed me off. And again, just liberals just num eating it up. Stop with that shit. I hate it so much. This is a New York Post article on that's when it starts to get scathing about Osse. It's an op-ed. It says, "Get your popcorn for the Democratic Socialist civil war over Osse's bid to unseat Representative Hakeem Jeffries." Boom, boom, boom. By the New York Post editorial board. Representative AOC is right. Far left City Councilman Osse's bid to unseat House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries is not a good idea. Per Post sources, the privileged Brooklyn radical launched this challenge against the explicit objections of Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, who's focused on pursuing his agenda, not a democratic civil war. Osse is an opportunistic twit who quit the local Democratic Socialists of America chapter years ago, saying he was not aligned with the organization itself, but recently rejoined after Mamdani showed what a force the DSA can be, right? Yeah, because I just pulled this up after I had assessed that for myself on the looking at the timeline. And again, it's just little moves like that that make me think, that make me not trust someone, quite frankly, right? It just makes me not trust someone. Of course, he presents that move as selfless, writing in the radical journal Jacobin that he did it because the movement surge that carried Zoran into office must grow into a tidal wave, i.e. a wave Osse wants to surf into his next job. Then again, many DSAers despise the left-centrist Jeffries, who only endorsed Mamdani shortly before Election Day and is backing multiple moderate Dems in order to win a House majority next year. We'd be happy to see the DSA fall into internal warfare as various factions battle over prioritizing the fight to capture retiring Representative Jerry Nadler's seat or to oust insufficiently anti-Israel Rep. Dan Goldman, or maybe take out Queen's Democratic boss Rep. Greg Meeks. It's amusing to watch one-time firebrand AOC play the responsible stateswoman and to track Mamdani's attempts to pragmatically work the halls in Albany to win his tax hikes and any other loose cash that can fund his $10 billion first-year plans. The mayor-elect, that is, needs to keep his DSA troops from going full Viking to burn down the Democratic Party before it pays him some Danageld. And that's very interesting because I was kind of looking into this more. People were kind of questioning, like, no, why are like Zoran and AOC, both against Chiose primarying Hakeem Jeffries? Because of course, once Zoran won, everyone was like, primary this one, it's going to be a bloodbath. But it seems from other pieces that I was reading that Zoran and AOC, who's stuck her neck out for him, and if this doesn't work out, it could cost her a possible future presidency, quite frankly, or at least right now it looks like maybe she's going to go against Chuck Schumer. What they need to concentrate is actually making good on the promises that they made. And if it's like this constant like endorsing of other people and like then, if you endorse Chiose and then he loses, that makes you look bad and weak and makes, the DSA look like a one-hit wonder. You don't want that happening while you're in office. You need to put your head down, get to work and be like, no, this wasn't a fluke. This young, relatively inexperienced people can have a vision if they have, the mobilization of the people and a coherent and intelligent team around them. So that actually made me really hopeful that they're taking it this seriously, and this is not just trying to be like let's overthrow the entire establishment at once, but like let's really try to get this fucking done. But, you immediately have to start playing chess, as we saw with the Brad Lander stuff. And that's kind of why when I was running, I was like, I'm only running once. And I go, I'm not, when I said I wasn't becoming a career politician, when running, I really meant that. Because people go, well, once you're a politician, you're a politician. Oh, you just became a career politician. Number one, no, I didn't. I did my politician stuff. And guess what? Went right back to comedy because I'm not a career politician. And I will continue being of service through activism until it is perhaps time to run again. I'm not fucking involved in this little game and being friends with all these untrustworthy people. But the second thing is like, oh, my plan literally was just to run for mayor and that's it. Be mayor 8 years and then go away. I feel like that's the only way you can really trust someone. If your goal is always to climb the ladder, at the end of the day, you're going to just keep making moves that make you someone who is going to continually get elected, not necessarily someone who's always there for the constituents. But I hope that the approach here with Zoran and AOC is that they maybe think that, and this is what a novel idea, that the way to get reelected is, instead of playing games, is to actually get the policy that you promised to happen. I think that would be a really great way to win, your second term as mayor. Just an idea. And let's end out this episode with one more a Trumpian story. This is about Sudan. I was complaining that no one's talking about Sudan when it's this huge humanitarian crisis. So many people are dead. It's really terrible. Why is no one talking about it? Well, I guess Donald Trump heard my prayers, because today, mere hours before I came to the studio tonight, this article pops up in Political that says the next item on Donald Trump's foreign policy agenda, Sudan. Let's see how Sudan can help Donald Trump. In meetings this week, the Saudi Crown Prince, who we were talking about before, has communicated to Trump his desire for increased American involvement in managing the humanitarian crisis. President Donald Trump on Wednesday signaled, this is by Gregory Snorvosky from Politico. President Donald Trump on Wednesday signaled his intent to focus on an ongoing humanitarian crisis in Sudan, a priority for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who the president met with in Washington this week. Sudan has been racked by a civil war for 2.5 years, pitting the Sudanese armed forces against the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group, which international institutions have accused the United Arab Emirates of backing. It's plunged tens of millions of people into a humanitarian crisis. Food, doctors, and everything else are desperately needed, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Arab leaders from all over the world, in particular the highly respected Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who has just left the United States, have asked me to use the power and influence of the presidency to bring an immediate halt to what is taking place in Sudan. In meetings since his Tuesday arrival in Washington, the Saudi Crown Prince has communicated to Trump his desire for increased American involvement in managing the crisis. Saudi Arabia would like to see the U.S. do more to urge the UAE to stop backing the Rapid Support Forces, an Arab official told Politico. The individual was granted anonymity to discuss sensitive diplomatic issues. Prior to leaving office, former President Joe Biden accused the RSF of committing genocide in Sudan. All right. So we all agree, rapid support forces we don't like. And let me just quickly go off a little bit and just really read maybe like a Wikipedia page on them. All right, so that's just the Rapid Support Forces. It's just a Sudanese paramilitary force that is formerly operated by the Sudanese government, and they originated as a militia known as the Janjaweed, used by the Sudanese government during the war in Darfur, which the government later restructured as a paramilitary organization in August 2013 under the command of Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Okay. All right. So interesting. The RSF's motives are widely characterized by academics, journalists, and other local and international observers as Arab supremacist and economic in nature. Their forces have been documented committing war crimes on a vast scale against members of non-Arab ethnicities in Sudan and against northern Sudanese. All right, there you go. So this is just wild. Trump, the RSF it's almost like, is this like the Arab IDF? Like it's. Yeah. Trump mentioned the Saudi government's interest in the issue in a speech Wednesday at the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum, telling the audience that His Majesty would like me to do something very powerful having to do with Sudan. It was not on my charts to be involved in that, he said. His charts? What is he? Is astrology? His birth chart? What charts?
Oh, like the chart that saved his life in Butler.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just something that was crazy and out of control, but I just see how important that it is to you and to a lot of your friends in the room. It's so funny for the president of the United States to see the largest humanitarian crisis and for him to go, yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that crazy genocide that was happening in Sudan. And, I just thought, wow, this is out of control. Someone should really do something about this. The fuck is going on?
Whoa, that's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah. Trump's overture could draw the ire of several key Republicans, including Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Steve Bannon, who argue the president needs to focus less on foreign policy and more on domestic issues, including affordability, in light of GOP losses in a series of off-cycle elections this month. And I mean, from a purely strategic point, I agree with Steve Bannon and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Again, from a humanitarian effort, someone needs to do something about Sudan. And let's start by someone fucking writing about it. Even when you look through these articles, like even journalists, like if you are a journalist, please write an article about Sudan for the love of God. I mean, if we have to write these like Chiose boyfriend reveal pieces, write a think piece that's like, oh, Sudanese girl would have revealed her boyfriend, but she's dead now because there's a genocide. Whatever you need to fucking put a picture of a Sudanese fucking girl who hasn't, eaten in 15 days on a tote bag. Whatever the fuck you need to do to get people's eyes on this shit. In the week since, sorry, I'm just really heated about this. It just to me again, it reads as such fucking hypocrisy, especially on the left. Again, we love everyone, we care about everyone. Dead silent on Sudan. In the week since, he's hosted Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara at the White House and elevated Saudi Arabia to the status of major non-NATO ally, deepening defense cooperation with Riyadh. Felicia Schwartz contributed to this report. And then just kind of like in tandem with that, this goes back to the, Jamal Khashoggi murder, that basically everyone really thinks it was this Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman who approved the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And again, it was something that was, brought up and, Trump basically, poo-pooed it. He called Khashoggi extremely controversial and claimed that a lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. He added, whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. That's how he described the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. He goes, things happen. Literally sitting in the room with the person who, like, 99% definitely fucking ordered the killing of this guy. And
our own CIA reportedly came to the conclusion that there was medium to high certainty that MBS had ordered the killing. That was in 2019. So Trump's CIA director told him, hey, by the way, this guy for sure did that. But then Saudi Arabia started, funneling millions and millions and millions of dollars into the United States over the next 6 years. So he's a pretty good guy now.
Right. And just in short, like why, the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, it was because he was a known critic, a known and loud critic of the Saudi government, right?
Not necessarily even that.
Well, I mean, that he was that though.
Right. But there's new evidence coming out this week that he was about to break a story on the CIA sending, because this was Jamal Khashoggi. He was boots on the ground in Saudi Arabia, but he was also a contributing columnist for the Washington Post. So he was reportedly submitting a story about how the CIA was directly leaking state secrets to MBS in exchange for cash payments. So, before the ties get out that Saudi Arabia has their hooks into the American, intel agencies, it's like, let's just kill this guy and kill the story.
Jesus Christ. Look, like, Jamal was killed by agents of the Saudi government in 2018 at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. Khashoggi was ambushed and strangled by a 15-member squad of Saudi operatives. His body was dismembered and disposed of in some way that was never publicly revealed. The New York Times reported in June 2019 that Saudi government engaged in an extensive effort to cover up the killing, including destroying evidence. By 16th of October, separate investigations by Turkish officials and the New York Times had concluded that the murder was premeditated and that some members of the Saudi hit team were closely connected to Mohammed bin Salman, as we said, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Trump's new bestie. And also, when you Google Mohammed bin Salman, he kind of looks like you a little bit, Mike. Like if your beard was a little bushier and you put like a head covering on, he kind of looks like you. It's freaking me out.
Yeah, that's my cousin, Sheik Harrington.
That could be your Halloween costume next year. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
Here's this here that I was looking at. A CNN article from 2018. Saudi Crown Prince bragged about Jared Kushner relationship. And this here, Jamal Khashoggi was reportedly investigating allegations that Kushner was selling CIA secrets to MBS.
Fun. All right. Well, that is fuck that. That's our show for today. Just jam-packed, chock full, just
everything's fine. Everything's fine. Okay? Everything's okay. Everything's just wonderful.
Really good time here. Again, thank you so much to everyone who listens to the show. Thank you to my patrons. We're gonna promo. What are you raising your hand about this time?
Oh no, I just I saw another thing about how MBS also gave $2 billion to Jared Kushner's fledgling investment firm when they first started.
Oh, and it all goes back to the money. All right. Wow. Well, that was so fun. Guys, another wonderful corrupt-free day here in the United States of America. Remember, make sure to vote. Make sure to keep an eye on your municipal elected officials. And, New Year's Eve. I'm doing my annual New Year's Eve show again. I don't know exactly what time. It's usually about 6 p.m. New York Comedy Club, East Village. Kind of just a standing show unless I'm going to be out of town, but I'm not this year. So just mark your calendars if you're looking, if you're already thinking ahead to what am I doing on New Year's Eve? Well, I hope that you're spending the early part of New Year's Eve with me. I don't know what we're doing for the lineup yet. In my head, I was kind of thinking, maybe I want to do a headlining. Do I want to, record something? Do I want to do a half hour? Do I want to do an hour? I don't know that I wrote enough new material this year to ensure that you wouldn't have heard some of the jokes just because of the campaign. But I'm just thinking out loud here. We'll do something, but I hope that you spend New Year's Eve with me. That's kind of become a fun yearly tradition. I also had another idea that I think could be cool. But again, all involves me. And then tomorrow I'm going to be on Mike's, the show Mike's produces at New York Comedy Club East Village, Anxiety Attack, at 10:15 that show starts?
I call it a 10 p.m. show. Doors will be open at 10.
New York Comedy Club starts on time. So, be there, but I would say 30 minutes before scheduled show time.
They start on time except for my shows.
Well, maybe I feel like that's probably your fault, Michael.
No, their 8 p.m.s tend to go long for some reason for mine. But weather's not that cold out. Hang outside. I'll probably be chilling there, getting a little toasty right after the Armored League.
Oh, wow. Isn't that almost sold out?
The Armored League is almost sold out. There's a few standing room only tickets available. Trust me, you want to get in this place. The more people in there, the more energy in the room, the more fun it's going to be. Come on out to a fully packed Armored League at Melrose Ballroom tomorrow night, 11:20.
And make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube. It's Without a Country YouTube. You want to follow Without a Country podcast on Instagram. I'm going to start kind of probably slicing up where I post political content and where I post comedic content. I think that might be helpful to get both into the, to the eyeballs that need to see it. So, my political stuff will go on Without a Country. And then, of course, I'm at Philanthropy Gal on all social media. I'm on Threads, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on X. Those are the main places where you're going to want to see me hanging out. And thanks so much for being here. If you want to become a patron, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. If you want to email something, we're always looking for municipal stories. We are looking for domestic violence stories, Cutie's Corner, whatever you come across. I don't get to everything every week, but I do see everything in my inbox, and I try to address it in some way or another. At least it crosses my desk. Without a Country Podcast at gmail.com is that email address. Again, thanks so much for listening to the show, for watching the show, for being here, for giving a shit about the place that you live. And if you don't live here, thanks for keeping an eye on us. And you know what? Make sure to keep tabs on what we're doing here, because this rightward movement is happening everywhere. And the problems that you see in America are not America specific. I mean, I know people like to make it seem like that's an America problem. America problems cause problems for everyone and can influence bad policy and bad people running for elections wherever. So no matter where you're watching from, please keep that in mind and make sure to be active in your community. Thanks so much. The truth is in there. Bye. Why are these all videos?